What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio. This is Stat Diggers, the deep dive for UFC Vegas 56. And we have Jairzinho Rozenstruik going against Alexander Volkov. 14 fights on the card. Coming back after a week off. I was just telling Weezy, hopefully there's no ring rust with the breakdowns. And I start off the show not getting the countdown going right. So, Weezy, what is up? How was your week off, man?
Oh, it was good, man. It was good. You know, we need these weeks off from time to time, man. It's a grind working 6, 7, 8 weeks back to back. And if I'm not mistaken, Brady, I think we've got, starting this week, 12 straight weeks of UFC cards. And if that's correct, man, we are going to be the hardest working people on YouTube because doing as many shows as we do every week, including Stat Diggers, we're going to be put to work here, and the UFC is making sure Uncle Weezy and Big Brady here are working our asses off. But we're happy to do it because it's just more opportunities to stack cash tickets like flapjacks, make some money off of these cards. And it's really a pretty good card coming back here after the 1 week break. It's not a lot of name value on this card, but a lot of really interesting stylistic matchups, some bangers, some good female fights. I'm looking forward to this one, man.
No, this card's really good. I was telling you earlier, like this card as a fight night card compared to some of the cards we had like last month, this card is very, very good. 14 fights, looking forward to it. And yeah, 12 weeks in a row. Our next break is like August 28th. So all summer of fights. So definitely looking forward to it. Before we get started, guys, and get into it, if you guys can please leave a like, it always helps out. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. We do shows all throughout the week. Me and Weezy will be back on Wednesday for the DraftKings show as well. And so I say we shout out the chat and get right into it. We have a lot to talk about on this card. And first one in the chat was our guy F Gorilla. What is up, F Gorilla? How have you been? We got Mushroom in the chat as well. Justin, Smooth Cat, Fandom Limb, Buffalo on the beat. We got Niles hanging out. MMA fan. Brandon, what is up? We got Lou Betcha, PSSA 31. We got Pub Sports Radio hanging out in the chat as well. Vanilla Coco. Philip, we got, it's the Big Show hanging out. Nick, Krukel, pronounced that right. Dr. Elijah True. Thank you all for hanging out. DXJC, Mellon in there as well. Andy, Angelo, Dan Goldstein hanging out. Excited for some comedy tonight. And KCOH as well. So I say we get right into it, Weezy, and we'll start with the first fight of the night. And this order could potentially change. We were talking about it right before we got on. And, Aaron Blanchfield, JJ Aldrich to kick off the card doesn't really make a lot of sense when we'll talk about some of these other fights that are even on the main card over this fight. But, this is going to be a very good fight. And it's going to be, I think the biggest favorite on the card in Aaron Blanchfield here. So we got Blanchfield. She is 23 years old. 5'4" with a 66-inch reach, going against JJ Aldrich, who is 29 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. Aaron Blanchfield, 6 years younger. It's going to be Aldrich with both a 1-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Aaron Blanchfield made her debut against Sarah Alpar, won that fight by decision, and then she beat Miranda Maverick. But at least she has a dog in that fight and won by a very dominant decision in that fight. So she's 5-0 in her last 5 fights there. And as far as JJ Aldrich, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. A decision win against Laura Mueller, a decision loss to Sabina Mazo, a decision win against Courtney Casey, a decision win against Vanessa Demopoulos, and then a decision win against Jillian Robertson. So, Weezy, should be a very fun fight to, as of now, kick off the card. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, having Aaron Cold-Blooded Blanchfield kicking off the card makes about as much sense as Corey McKenna's last game plan against Elise Reed here. There's no way that this is going to be the first fight of the night. I don't know why UFC Stats and SureDog have this listed as the first fight of the night, but please don't make this the first fight of the night. This is such a high-level women's fight. So Aldrich is more experienced here. 6 more professional fights, about twice as much time in the pro cage, about 3.5 more years as a pro, and she's got 8 more UFC-level fights and about 115 more minutes in the UFC cage. So a big experience advantage here for JJ Aldrich. In addition to that, she's an inch taller and has a 1-inch reach advantage, and she's a southpaw. So some nice advantages there. Cold-Blooded Blanchfield has finished 3 of her 8 pro wins inside the distance, and for Aldrich, it's only 2 of 11. So it would be 5 of 19 combined wins for these two ladies inside the distance. So less than a 27% finish rate for these ladies at the pro level. And neither one of them in 9 UFC combined wins has ever finished a fight at the UFC level. In terms of how they lose fights, JJ's been finished inside the distance twice, once by knockout, once by submission. And Erin Blanchfield has only lost once, and it was by decision on the regional scene to Tracy Cortez in a very close fight that was a split decision. So with this fight, I kind of look at it as a striker versus grappler matchup, Brady. I mean, Aldrich does really well on the feet. Her numbers don't look like she's a good striker, but the numbers don't really reflect how good JJ Aldrich is at winning minutes on the feet with her clinch game and with her distance striking game. You see that Aldrich is absorbing about 0.4 more significant strikes than she lands per minute, and her opponents are actually throwing about 2.5 more significant strikes attempts per minute than JJ is. While Cold-Blooded's put up some video game numbers here, 5.53 significant strikes landed per minute and only 2.07 absorbed. And then you go down and you look at those grappling numbers, Brady. My God, man. 10 of 11 on takedowns, over 90% takedown accuracy. She's averaging 5 takedowns per 15 minutes and is out-controlling her opponents 72.5% to 0.33%. And that's against two grapplers in Sarah Alpar and Miranda Maverick. And we saw her do very well on the ground against Tracy Cortez at the age of 19, I have to mention as well. When Erin Blanchfield fought Tracy Cortez, she was 19 years old and probably won that fight. 100% takedown defense for Cold-Blooded. One of my favorite stories, watching regional scene footage on Erin Blanchfield, finding the reason behind the nickname Cold-Blooded. When she's cutting weight for fights, she will bake for her family, like sweets, cookies, cakes. Like, she's absolutely cold-blooded. This is a mammal that has cold blood running through her veins. Go watch that Maverick fight. She wouldn't even touch gloves at the beginning of the fight. After every round, she got up off of her and didn't even make eye contact with her. She had nothing but contempt for her opponent. And her performance absolutely reflected that in spades. What a masterclass performance there by Cold-Blooded Blanchfield. And we see why she's such a big favorite here. But we do have to keep in mind, JJ's bigger. She's more experienced. She's the better striker. And then if you look at JJ's numbers, right? JJ has 7 takedowns in 10 fights, and JJ's opponents have 7 takedowns in 10 fights. But JJ is out-controlling her opponents at about a 2.5 to 1 ratio. It's going to be essential that she keeps this fight on the feet and does not go to the ground with Erin Blanchfield, because it's going to be very difficult for her to win minutes there, and it's going to be very difficult for her to get up there without risking up giving her back. We saw Erin really dominate in a lot of the grappling positions, in particular in the Maverick fight, who's a better grappler than Sarah Alpar is. And we still saw, Erin do really well against Alpar, but what she did against Maverick was just next level. Had her in a crucifix and almost finished the fight. Was working for Americanas from the mount. Everything that she did really shows that at the age of 23, she's still improving. She's still getting better. And she's handled her first 2 UFC performances with absolute class. It's going to be a big step up in competition going up against a 10-fight UFC veteran in JJ Aldrich, who's won 7 of those fights. But there's a couple of bad losses on the record with Aldrich. Her debut against Juliana Lima, she got taken down and controlled for about half the fight. Sabina Mazo beat her. That was not a good look at all, seeing as Sabina hasn't won a fight since then. Yeah, I see why this is a wide line, but it probably shouldn't be this wide. JJ is a very tough opponent. She's done very well keeping fights standing, and she can mix in the grappling and get takedowns when she feels like she's the better grappler. I don't see her doing that on Saturday, though. I think she's going to be working with every fiber of her being to keep this fight on the feet.
Yep, I think it's so the line is obviously wide, but it's one of those things where I think Blanchfield's going to win. I mean, it was crazy. Like, I was not expecting to go out there and did what she did against Maverick, who people really like. People are really high on Maverick, and rightfully so. Like, Maverick's a very good fighter, a very good prospect in her own right, and she went out there and just dominated her. So she opened up minus 275, and she is now minus 600. Not much you can really do with that. And on top of that, like I don't really want to mess around with like the decision or the knockout or the submission. Like I could see a TKO, I could see a potential submission, I could see a dominant decision. I think it's just gonna be one where I just sit back and just watch. So yeah, I like Blanchfield obviously, but that's not a hot take. Biggest favorite on the card, minus 600. Minus 600 is about I think like an 85% probability. So yeah, wide line, but I think she gets it done. So I actually see a lot of people taking a shot on JJ Aldrich, surprisingly.
I'm not surprised by that because it is a very wide line. It's a women's fight. And how has it worked out for us when we've laid juice on women's MMA, Brady? Has it worked out well for you?
No, like
I know I'm getting my ass shaved. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, Holly Holm nearly cost me the damn house on last Saturday. So I mean, this is not good, man. I'm not going to get in the habit of laying this kind of juice on women's MMA. I'm going to just sit back and enjoy one of the brightest prospects in the women's flyweight division go out there and do work. I'm a big fan of Cold-Blooded, and I can't wait to see her fight again. But in terms of putting money on this fight, I think the fight goes to decision. It's going to be so juiced because both of these ladies have low finish rates. But, I mean, we saw Blanchfield come close to finishing Maverick 3 or 4 different times in the last fight. So I think I'm going to keep my money far away from this and just really enjoy Erin Blanchfield's performance.
Yep, minus 240 fight goes to decision. So yeah, it's no point in touching that. And yeah, unless Blanchfield comes out there with like a Corey McKenna game plan, then she should be fine in this fight. But yeah, if she comes in here and fights like Corey McKenna did, like once the test her strike, and then yeah, it's gonna be close. But her wrestling just is so good. So yeah, I think it's a good spot for Blanchfield there. But yeah, we can keep moving on to the next fight. We have Andreas Michailidis going against newcomer Renat Fakhretdinov. Hope I pronounced that somewhat correct. But we have Fakhretdinov, who is 30 years old, 6 foot. Michailidis, 33 years old, 6 foot with a 76-inch reach. Fakhretdinov is going to be making his debut, just coming off a knockout win in like the first minute against Eric Spicely. And then Andreas Michailidis, who is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, had made his debut against Modestas Bukauskas, had that really weird knockout loss towards the end of I believe the first round. And then after that, it won a decision against KB Bueller. And then it had a knockout loss in the second round against Alex Pereira. So, yeah, this is an interesting fight. I was able to watch a good amount of Fakhretdinov. There's only like 5 or 6 fights out there available for what I can see. He's a very solid wrestler. His cardio solid. He did knock out Eric Spicely, but, you know, in a lot of his fights, he is going out there trying to get his opponent down to the mat. Michailidis, for what it's worth, he is a black belt in BJJ, and I actually think he's a really good fighter. I think his striking solid. Like I said, black belt in BJJ, very well rounded. The problem with Michailidis is this guy's gas tank is just really, really, really bad, and that's kind of what worries me here in this fight. If this fight gets extended, you know, what is he going to look like in the second round? Like, he won the first round against Alex Pereira. It's just when the second round came around, like this guy was like so tired, looked like he could barely stand. So. Yeah, I feel like I'm not running to the window to lay this price on the newcomer and Fakhretdinov. And I feel like, you know, going forward, maybe could fade him in the future, but it's just the gas tank of Michailidis that really scares me away from betting this fight. Weezy, how do you feel about this one?
Yeah, it should be fun. One thing I want to mention about this fight is, first of all, we don't have the stats, the reach, the stance, the fight camp for Fakhretdinov. None of that information is available yet. And when you go back on the Tapology page for Fakhretdinov, wow! Other than Spicely, Johnny Carlos, and Albert Uda, I don't think he's ever beaten a guy with more than 1 win on their record. I mean, this guy is an absolute can crusher. But when he did step up to fight Alberto Uda, who's a UFC veteran, he looked good in that fight. He knocked out Spicely very quickly, but Spicely not known for his striking. And we do see him going to his wrestling over and over again when he is the better grappler or when he's not afraid of getting submitted. And I think to just give you guys an idea of what Fakhretdinov is all about, he took down Alberto Uda. And for those of you who know what Alberto Uda is good at, he's a guard grappler. The guy is 100% finish rate almost. He gets finishes from his back. He's kind of like a Joel Alvarez type. And Fakhretdinov took Uda down, went right into his guard, and was never in any trouble of being submitted. So I believe that if Fakhretdinov wants to take down Michailidis here, he'll be able to do that. But this is going to be at 170 pounds, Brady, and I don't know why. Because Mihalidis has fought his whole career at 205 and 185. I've never seen Fakhretdinov take a fight at welterweight before. Both of these guys are evidently going to be making their welterweight debut here, and they're both huge. So they're both big middleweights. So I think that's going to be something that we have to take into account here. Mihalidis, we haven't even seen this guy defend a takedown yet in the UFC. I see why Fakhretdinov is the big favorite here. It makes sense. He's just as experienced as Mihalidis. He's been a lot more active than Mihalidis. And he's got a 90, or what is this? An 89% finish rate in 18 wins. So 16 of 18 wins coming inside the distance. He's very dangerous. And like I said, well-rounded, like Mihalidis is. So it seems like the line is wide, but I do believe that Fakhretdinov can not only win moments, but win minutes here. But the thing that's kind of keeping me away from this fight is that both of these guys making their debut at 170. So I don't know how that's going to go.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, if anything, it probably makes me like Fakhretdinov more because Mihalidis' cardio is just so bad. What's it going to look like when he's cutting down like an extra 15 pounds? Like that's nuts to me that this is fight. It's at 170. Like, is that a mistake? Because remember a couple of months ago they made it like a mistake on one of these fights, saying it's at once like a different weight class. Do you think it could be a mistake? Because it just makes no sense.
So I saw that it said on SureDog. Or not SureDog, but on Tapology about a week ago that it was going to be at 170. So I thought immediately, yeah, that's a mistake. So I went to UFC Stats. They had it listed as a middleweight fight. They updated it and changed it to a welterweight fight. So either somebody over at the UFC Stats website is completely clueless, or this is going to be a welterweight fight, which is really surprising to me. And when we have something like that, that's one of these narrative things that gets thrown into the equation, Brady. It gives us some information now that we don't have really access to. What are these guys going to look like at 170? Are their body types going to be different? Is their cardio going to be compromised? Is their chin going to be compromised? A lot of questions to be answered with such a wide line. So it's kind of making me feel like staying away might be the best idea. However, to take the fight to finish inside the distance is very interesting. 6 combined losses, 5 of them inside the distance. Mihalidis has been finished in all 5 of his losses. Mihalidis, 85% finish rate in his wins. Fakhretdinov, 89% finish rate in his wins. So a fight doesn't go to decision here at better than -200, I might add, is a pretty good look. That's the kind of thing when we have 2 fighters making their debut down a weight class with an additional 15 pounds of weight to cut. That's when you like taking a fight doesn't go.
Yeah, especially at this price. Like you take a look at so Bet Online does not have it out yet, but on 5 Dimes looks like the fight doesn't go as -180, but on Caesars the fight doesn't go as like -115, which makes no sense. So yeah, and like I told you, like it opened up at +120. Like that's nuts to me.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the prop template right now. Even at -185, which is a 65% implied probability on the line, Brady, 32 of 37 of the pro fights for Mihalidis and Fakhretdinov combined have finished inside the distance. That's 86.5%. You can bet it at -185 for the fight doesn't go, and you're actually getting a 21.6% edge over the books based on the combined finish rates for these 2 fighters and their wins and losses. So great first look of something to bet here for this card will be the fight doesn't go to decision for the Greek guy against the Russian guy. Let's go.
Yeah, that's wild. But checking out Bovada now, which is the only place I could bet it at, it's -250. So they're on top of it.
Yeah. I might have to open a Caesars account by the end of the day, my friend. They're doing good, dude. Caesars Sportsbook. Let me just say, I want to shout them out because they're definitely becoming a player in space here in MMA, and I like it.
Yep. And then we have some other sports books that are kind of slacking as of late. We won't mention any names, but we actually have mentioned them a lot. So hopefully they get it together. But yeah, violence here. I like it, Weezy. But the money line is where it's one of those fights where I just need to see more of him. Fakhretdinov. I need to see more of Fakhretdinov before I lay like -300 on the guy. He opened up -300. He's now -260. And then Michailidis opened up plus 250. He is now plus 220. I'm curious to see what Fakhretdinov inside the distance is. So Fakhretdinov inside the distance minus 105. Like, that's not terrible. That's only on 5 dimes though. So maybe plus money would be nice on that. But yeah, like you said, Michailidis has been finishing all his losses, right?
All 5 of his losses inside the distance, and 2 of those were on the regional scene. So yeah, that's a good look for it. And when you're talking about Fakhretdinov on the money line sitting around minus 300, that's a 75% implied probability. But at around even money, you're talking a 50% implied probability for the inside the distance. Since Fakhretdinov finishes around 90% of the time, and Michailidis gets finished 100% of the time. If you're looking for a value way to play the Fakhretdinov side, the inside the distance will be the way to do it.
Yep, I like that. Maybe like a sprinkle in that round 3 as well, because Michailidis' gassing just so terrible. But I do like violence here with you, Weezy. So we got some donos in the chat. Big Steve with the dono with the dollar signs, $20. Appreciate you, Big Steve, for hanging out, and appreciate the dono as well. And of course, we got our guy F Carrillo saying, for the sacrifices you make for us to gain. I love you, gents. We love you, F Carrillo. And yeah, I'll tell you what, it is a big sacrifice spending your Sunday taping Felice, Herrig, Karolina, Kowalkiewicz. That was rough. It took at least 5 years off my life. So thank you, Gorilla, for hanging out. We do appreciate you a ton, and Big Steve as well. All you guys hanging out. So I say we move on to the next fight. We have Jeff Molina going against Zhalgas Zhumagulov. We have Jeff Molina, who is 24 years old, 5'6", with a 69-inch reach. Zhalgas Zhumagulov, 33 years old, 5'4", with a 66-inch reach. It's going to be Molina, who's going to be 9 years younger. It's also going to be Molina, who's going to have a 2-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage as well. Molina made his debut against Arichi Long, won that fight by decision, one of the best fights of the year, and then after that knocked out Daniel Lacerda in the second round. As far as Zhalgas Zhumagulov, he made his debut against, was it Julian Paiva? Or that was on that was outside the UFC. I mean, he made his debut against Amir Albazi, lost that by decision, and then submitted Jerome Rivera, and then knocked out by Manel Kopp in his last fight out. So yeah, should be a good fight. Jeff Molina obviously becoming a fan favorite very fast, not only for his presence on social media, but just the way the guy fights. Like, this guy's exciting, tons and tons of volume. Like he's attempting 17 significant strikes thrown per minute, something you love to see. And on top of that, he's just playing out well-rounded. Very good ground game. Very good striking, very good cardio, very good toughness. The guy's just a very likable fighter. So yeah, I really like Jeff Molina. But this is definitely going to be a step up, going from a guy in Daniel Lacerda to a guy like Zhalgas, who has some good wins in and outside the UFC. So looking forward to see him in this step up. But yeah, I like Molina here quite a bit. Weezy, how do you feel about this matchup?
Yeah, it's a good one, man, because Molina's, this is another one of those fights where it's like the name value isn't quite there, but it's going to be a banger, because Molina always brings like a really big time action style with his fights. He's easy to take down, but he gets back up quickly, and he's always fishing for things when he's not trying to get back up, whether he's on top or on the bottom. Love the speed, love the volume, love the conditioning, love the toughness. But let's face it, Zhumagulov's got 8 more fights, 150 more minutes in the cage, about almost 3 more years as a pro, and a little bit more experience inside the UFC in terms of just 1 more UFC fight, about a minute more in the UFC cage. If we look at the finish rates, we see that Molina, 4 wins by submission, 4 wins by knockout, 2 wins by decision. So the guy can get it done in a number of different ways. He has been finished by submission once he has been finished, or he's lost his other fight by decision. Zhumagulov has got a 57% finish rate in 14 wins, and he's been finished in 2 of his 6 losses, both times by submission. Both times by knockout. These guys have been finished in 3 out of their 8 combined losses, and they're getting finishes and 8 out of 10 and 8. So 16 out of 24. So that's 2/3 finish rate in their wins. But like you mentioned, the volume that Molina's putting out here, and it's not like 95% of Molina's fights have been taking place on the feet. His fights have taken place in control time positions, almost a combined 30% of his UFC career, which is 35 minutes. So over 10 minutes of his UFC cage time has taken place in control time positions for or against. But what's also interesting here with Molina is the fact that he's out controlling his opponents 18.3% to 10.4%, despite the fact that Molina has no takedowns and his opponents have gotten 5. So that shows you that, yeah, you can take Molina down, but it's not necessarily the best way to beat him because he usually gets right back up. And if you're expending energy trying to take this guy down, but you're unable to keep him down, the volume and the conditioning that Molina brings in the second and the third rounds is going to be a serious problem if you gas out. And the problem with what I'm seeing from Zhumagulov's numbers here, Brady, is only 3 of 14 on his takedown attempts. He's getting his takedowns at less than a 25% clip, and he's only managed to control his opponents 3.14% of the time in 36 minutes in the UFC cage. So that's about a minute and a half of control time on 3 takedowns and on 14 takedown attempts. So if Zhalgas is going to wrestle here, chances are he's not going to get the takedowns. And if he does, chances are Molina is going to get right back up. And we see that Zhumagulov is getting out-volumed and outlanded thus far in the UFC. He likes to be in close fights, and we've seen Zhumagulov fight some really good regional scene competition. He fought Tagirulanbekov on the regional scene. He fought Ali Bagatinov on the regional scene. Then in the UFC, he's fought Paiva, Albazi, Rivera, and Kopp. 3 of those names, Paiva, Albazi, and Kopp, are really good competition. So this is the next step up. It's the logical next step for Molina to take against a switch stance fighter, against the guy who's fought guys like Bagatinov, Paiva, Kopp, Ulanbekov, and somebody who is comfortable wrestling. It's going to be a very interesting fight because Molina is such a good prospect. He is so exciting to watch, and he brings definitely a panache to the cage with him. He's fun to watch. He's very, very confident, and I like that. And he comes to scrap, man. He's a mean dude, too. It looks like he's the kind of guy who we beat you up at the end of the round, and then when the ref kind of pulls him off of him to go back to his corner, he'll talk a little shit to your face before you go back to your corner. And I like that edge on him because, like you mentioned, Brady, he is really good everywhere. And that conditioning that he brings is such a big part of his game at these lower weight classes. Having that endless gas tank and the ability to use it and put volume on your opponents is very important. So it's not surprising to see the less experienced guy be a pretty good size favorite based on what we've seen out of Zhumagulov thus far in the UFC.
Yeah, and I think if Zhumagulov's going to have success in this fight, I think he's going to have to get takedowns. And like we talked about, the wrestling's not all that there, the control's not all that there. And if Molina is taken down, it's not like he's a fish out of water on the mat by any means. Very good scrambling, very good off his back, very good at work his way back up. So yeah, I think this fight primarily does play out on the feet. And at that point, just give me the volume, give me the pace, give me the cardio of Jeff Molina throughout 3 rounds. But yeah, he is a big favorite. He opened up as a minus 200 favorite, went all the way to minus 150. He's now back to minus 180. Zhumagulov opened up plus 120. He is currently plus 155. So we are paying a decent amount of chalk here from Molina. The over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 210. The under 2.5 rounds is plus 170. The fight goes to decision is minus 160. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 130. Any thoughts on the money line or the time props?
Yeah, the money line is probably, in my opinion, kind of right where it should be here. In terms of the fight doesn't go to decision, I had it yesterday at plus 130, 43% implied probability. These fights are finishing about 40% of the time inside the distance, and 3 of the 7 combined UFC fights have finished inside the distance for Zhumagulov and Molina here. And outside of the UFC for their combined competition, 19 out of 32 finished inside the distance, about 60% of the time. So it looks like the time props and the money line are priced right about where I would expect them to be. Nothing is jumping out for me on this fight, but I do like Molina here to get the win. I'm interested to see how he takes this next step up in competition against somebody with a little more experience than what he's used to seeing thus far.
Sounds good. Dixon Sider. Dixon, I'm not ignoring you. We just have a lot to talk about, so can't get to everything. But he said Zalgas by decision. Screenshot this, Brady. Everyone biased AF on Molina. You guys heard it here first. The Dixon Sider is on that Zalgas by decision, which Zalgas by decision is sitting at so Molina by decision plus 115, and then Zalgas by decision is plus 300. What do you think about Molina? They're not giving you great odds on the decision, but Molina by decision plus 115 looks like it's plus 150 on Betway, but don't have a Betway. Nothing's really sticking out here on this one.
Nothing's sticking out for me either, and I'm fine with that when I like the fight, when I know it's going to be, because nothing's sticking out on the lines for Aldrich cold-blooded, but I can't wait to see that fight. It's a great fight, and it's the same thing with this one here. This is going to be an absolute banger. But nothing is sticking out time prop wise or money line wise. So that leads me to believe that I'm just going to sit back, watch the lines, and see if anything interesting happens. And if not, I'll be watching an interesting fight with no money on it.
Yeah, it's going to be a good fight, 100%. But we'll keep moving on to a very interesting fight. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this one. We have Johnny Munoz going against Tony Gravely. I'm actually a big fan of both these guys. We have Munoz, who is 29 years old, 5'9", with a 71-inch reach. We have Gravely, who is 30 years old, 5'5", with a 69-inch reach. So Munoz 1 year younger. Munoz with a 4-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage as well. Munoz, he made his debut against Nate Maness, lost that fight by decision. Very close fight. He got a point deduction in that fight. I thought he won, but all three judges, I believe, gave it the fight to Maness there, 29-28. And then, or 29-27, I believe. And then he won by submission against Jamie Simmons his last time out, 4-1 his last 5 fights. Tony Gravely, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Submission loss to Brett Johns. Decision win against Geraldo de Freitas. A knockout win against Anthony Burchak. A knockout loss against Nate Maness. And then a decision win against Simon Oliveira. So this fight is so interesting because we have Tony Gravely, who the guy is obviously a phenomenal wrestler. The guy is, getting a ton of takedowns each and every fight, and he's good at doing that. It's just I do have a couple problems with Tony Gravely. The first one is going to be the cardio. He does tend to slow down as the fight goes on. The second one is the submission defense at times. He's been submitted, I believe, 5 times in his entire career, and you go and take a look at who he's getting submitted by, and they are really good fighters. I believe that Bermuda submitted him, Brett Johns submitted him, Patchy Mix submitted him, and a couple other submission losses baked in there, but he has been submitted quite a few times, which is interesting because he is going against Johnny Munoz, who is a legit black belt in BJJ. He is a guy that's going to want the fight to be on the mat. So I'm actually curious to see what Gravely's game plan is going to be. Is it going to be to take down Johnny Munoz where he's most comfortable, or is it going to be to try to strike with Johnny Munoz here? So Johnny Munoz went back and watched his fight against Maness and then Simmons as well, a couple other fights, and his striking is a lot better than I thought. He has really solid kicks. He was having success at times against Maness. His wrestling is pretty solid as well. Like, what happens if he's able to take down Tony Gravely in this fight? I think Gravely could be in some trouble, but stylistically, this fight is just very, very interesting because we have Munoz who literally wants it on the mat, and then we have Gravely who that's all he does is get fights down to the mat. So Weezy, very fun matchup. What do you think about this one here?
Yeah, very interesting. So, obviously Munoz, the bigger guy here, 4 inches taller, having that 2-inch reach advantage. Those are nice things, but Gravely, he's one of the most active fighters I've ever seen, Brady. This guy has this will be his 30th fight, and his career isn't even 7 years long yet. It's about 6.5 years long. So this guy's fighting almost 5 times a year. Very, very active fighter. Munoz is fighting less than twice a year, a very inactive fighter. We've got a guy, these guys started their careers within a month of each other, and Gravely has 29 fights and Munoz has 12, and Gravely has 4 more UFC level fights and about 45 more minutes in the UFC cage. But it's Munoz who has this 82% finish rate and 11 wins. And Gravely with a 55% finish rate in 22 wins. But Gravely, like you mentioned, 7 losses, and he's been finished in 6 of them, and 5 of them by submission, 1 of them by knockout. So that's very dangerous because Munoz has a 64% finish rate in his 11 wins. So that would be, I think, 7 out of his 11 wins coming inside the distance by submission. And we've seen Gravely get submitted 5 times. And this guy Munoz is no joke on the ground. He's a very good wrestler. He's very active trying to get the fight to the ground. And when he gets the fight to the ground, he's looking to submit you. And both of these guys, Brady, are spending the majority of their fights in control time positions for or against. They're both good strikers, but it's clear that when you watch not only the UFC experience of these guys, but the regional scene footage as well, that these guys are grapplers first and strikers second. Gravely, my God, 31 takedowns in only 6 UFC fights. That's bonkers. 6.76 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's getting his takedowns at over a 55% clip, and he's out-controlling his opponents at about a 4-to-1 ratio. 47% control time for, 12% control time against. So he's spending about 6 out of 10 seconds of his fights in control time positions for or against. And then you see Munoz, and he's even out-controlling his opponents at a better ratio than Gravely is, as he's got 52% control time for and only 6.57% control time against. So both of these guys are not showing particularly great takedown defense, as Munoz has been taken down the only time somebody shot on him, and Gravely only showing 50% takedown defense in his own right. So it's really easy to see this being just almost a pure grappling and wrestling match, and seeing who can win more minutes on the ground, who can do more damage on the ground, and who can fish for submissions and potentially get a finish via submission. I do see whoever is the better grappler here winning this fight, and Munoz is the bigger guy. He's not as experienced, but he does seem to be that pure grappler archetype that could be better on the ground than Gravely, despite the fact that Gravely's fought the much better brand of competition than Munoz has, and that, he's a lot more experienced. He's just been around the same amount of time, but I mean, having more than twice as many pro fights and being twice as active in comparison to Munoz is going to be a step up for Munoz. So it's a very, very interesting matchup here, but Gravely's more experienced. He's fought and beaten the better brand of competition here. And I think the striking is going to be very close. And I think the grappling is going to be very close. So where do we have the line on this one?
Yep, so it is going to be Gravely, who is the slight favorite. Gravely opened up minus 150. He's now minus 38. And then Johnny Munoz opened up plus 130, and he's currently plus 118, which makes sense because I feel like Gravely is probably going to be the minute winner here. I feel like he's going to be the one going for takedowns and getting takedowns. It's just, it kind of feels like the Bartosz Fabinski Gerald Meerschaert fight, where Bartosz Fabinski, very good wrestler, is able to get it down to the mat. Meerschaert, not great takedown defense, but when Meerschaert's on the mat, he's very dangerous. Black belt, tons of submissions. Bartosz had been submitted like 3 or 4 times at that point. Bartosz goes in for a takedown, and he gets submitted by GM3. I can kind of see the same thing happening here. Like, yeah, could Gravely go out there and take him down, rinse and repeat for 3 rounds? Sure, but Munoz, that's where he wants to fight. He's going to have 15 minutes to try to lock something up off his back. And like I said, if he could take down Gravely, like, I think he could, potentially do that. Like, Gravely has only a 50% takedown defense. Like, what happens if Munoz takes down Gravely and gets on top? So it's a tricky fight. I see why Gravely's favored, but I kind of like the dog here in Munoz. And maybe not from like a money line standpoint, but the submission prop. Like, Gravely has been submitted a ton, and Munoz is going to have a lot of opportunities. So I'm going to be kind of looking at it from a prop standpoint and maybe get a Munoz submission prop. Looks like on Bet Online, it is plus 275. I have a good feeling that FanDuel's probably going to get it much better. But yeah, I'm kind of liking the Munoz by sub there. But yeah, like I said, I get why Gravely is favored here. He should be the one to win minutes.
Yeah, he's fought and beaten the better brand of competition, and he's the more experienced guy. But actually, Brady, Munoz has 19 takedown attempts in 22 and a half minutes in the UFC, and Gravely has 56 takedown attempts in 68 minutes of UFC cage time. So I don't think we want to assume that Gravely is going to be the one shooting for takedowns first. I think it's kind of going to be 50-50 in terms of who shoots for takedowns first, because both of these guys are wrestlers, and that's that's where both of these guys win minutes. So unless one of them feels like they've got a big advantage on the feet, And I don't know if that's the case on either side here. I think we're going to see these guys do what they're most comfortable doing, and that's grappling. But I think it's just as likely to be Munoz trying that first takedown as it is Gravely, and Bootsy's liking Munoz right now. And one more thing. Somebody said in the chat, are we going to make the stats available for free again?
Yeah.
They're always available for free, guys. If you go to my Twitter at MMA Weezy, I just put out a tweet today that has the link to the spreadsheet for that you're looking at here. And we can put it in the description of the video as well to make it available for you guys. If you watch Stat Diggers and you want to get the link off the description of the video, we'll put it in there too. But yeah, always available for free. If you follow me on Twitter, or even if you don't, you can just go to my Twitter profile and click on the UFC 56 stats link that I sent out earlier today.
Yeah, Weezy, just remind me to get it in, and I'll get it in after the show.
Cool, we'll do.
All right, so there you guys go. And yeah, so good fight, very interesting fight. Very curious to see how this one plays out, and really curious to see. Hopefully, FanDuel puts out like a Munoz by sub at like plus 500 or something crazy like that.
Oh, that'd be sweet. I'd be on that at plus 500 for sure. Dude's super dangerous on the ground.
We can only hope. But next fight, we have Nicholas. How do you pronounce it? Is it Stolze?
Stolze, I think. I think it's just Stolze.
Going against Benoit Saint-Denis, our old friend Weezy. This was the fight where, what was his name? Vagislav Kiselev?
Kiselev, yeah. Kiselev or Kisiev, yeah.
I still have nightmares about that. But yeah, he's back. He's back after a crazy beating. But we have Saint-Denis, who is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision loss to Solecki in his last time out. That was kind of the beating there that should have been stopped. He is 26 years old, 5'11", with a 73-inch reach. Going against Stolze, 29 years old, 6'1", with a 74-inch reach. Stolze, he did make his debut against Ramazan Ameev. That feels like it was so long ago. And then just recently against Jared Gooden got knocked out in the very first round. So, yeah, we didn't get to see a ton of what Saint-Denis is about. And went back and watched the last fight against, Zaleski. Can't really take too much away from that. But prior to that, this guy is a very good grappler. I believe he's a black belt in BJJ, but he wants to get the fight down to the mat. Saw a little bit of a striking. He didn't look horrible, but still is at a pretty big disadvantage in the Zaleski fight. And I think he will be at a striking disadvantage here. And he's going to want to get the fight down to the mat against Nicholas Stolze here. So, yeah, it's looking to be another striker versus grappler matchup here. But, Stolze does have some grappling in his own right. I believe he's a brown belt in BJJ. But, you best believe Denise is going to want to get this fight down to the mat early and often to have success here.
Oh, absolutely, Brady. I mean, when you watch the footage on Saint-Denis, he's a grappler, and even in the ass shaving that he took from Zaleski, dude shot 14 takedowns and got 2 of them. So this is what he's going to try to do here. Stolze is well-rounded, but when you see Stolze at his best, it's when he's on his feet striking and he's using his distance. He throws with a lot of power, really good leg kicks. Good straight punches down the pipe. But Saint-Denis is going to be working to get this into the grappling realm. That's where he's at his best. He's a good wrestler. He's a good submission grappler. And we saw in the Zaleski fight that there's not an ounce of quit anywhere in this dude. This is the anti-Frenchman because, usually we can count on the French for surrender. But in this case, certainly not. And we're definitely seeing that trend start to turn now as we see France really kind of getting on the MMA map with fighters like Cyril Gane and Francis Ngannou training out of France. Even Nasruddin Imavov, the Russian who trains in France. There's some really good talent coming out of France now. And Saint-Denis, one of these younger guys that's bringing that game plan. This guy's only been a pro for 3 years and 3 months, but he's got 10 fights and he's 9-1. So, yeah, striker versus grappler matchup here for sure. Denis, we just see this guy grappling on the regional scene. The striking is just average. So it is easy to kind of call it, to break this down as, okay, if Stolze can keep this one standing, he's going to have a really good chance to win this fight. And if Saint-Denis really does get his wrestling going, gets Stolze to the ground, and is able to win minutes there, like Ameev was able to win minutes against Stolze on the ground, then we could see Saint-Denis get his first UFC win. But we want to be cognizant of the fact that you don't just come into the UFC and then get handed an opponent like Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. I can remember one other guy that was given Zaleski dos Santos as his debut matchup, and that was Shavkat Rakhmonov. And it wound up being he pulled out of that fight, not Rakhmonov, but Zaleski dos Santos. And then we saw Rakhmonov actually make his debut against Alex Cowboy Oliveira, and then the next fight was against like a 10-fight veteran in Prazeres. So the fact that this guy Saint-Denis comes out of Brave, gets big wins there, wins their 175-pound championship, and then gets Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos as his UFC debut, tells you what Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby and Dana White think of this guy as a fighter. He's a very good fighter with a very bright future, still only 26 years old, and really he knows who he is. He's a grappler first, but he hasn't fallen in love with his hands or his kickboxing. He is going to wrestle. He showed us against Zaleski dos Santos, despite the fact that he was getting his brain scrambled in there, he still tried for 14 takedowns and got 2 of them. So he was trying to get the fight where he would be at his best.
Yep, for sure. And yeah, I mean, you take a look at the line, Benoit Saint-Denis. He opened at minus 275. My goodness. Now he's down to minus 145, and Nicholas Stoltz opened up as a plus 235 favorite, and he's currently plus 125. Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, went back and watched Saint-Denis, and he's a good grappler. He looks green. Like, he's making so many mistakes. He's sloppy. I saw him get reversed like a ton in like the limited footage that I watched. And on top of that, like the striking, just not that. I'm just not impressed with Saint. Like, this line makes no sense. I think he's this big of a favorite because he got his ass beat, and people really like these tough guys, and it's great to have toughness, but I just did not see a ton. Like, yeah, I don't know. This line doesn't make much sense, and you have Stolze, who has not been impressive yet thus far, but making your debut against Ramazan Emeev, like, that's not easy to do, and he did have some success there. And he got knocked out by Gooden, but I went back and watched some, Stolze, very good striking. Like I said, brown belt, he's very active off his back, good takedown defense. I don't know. I just feel like, I don't know. I'm just not all that impressed with Saint-Denis. I think I need to see more. And yeah, he's young. He's 26 years old. Like you said, he just started MMA, but he just looks very, very, very green to me still. So this is a fight where I'm actually tempted on the dog here, but even then, like, I'm not running to the window to bet Nicholas Stolze. So I think it's going to be a pass for me. Like, the fight goes is plus 145. The fight doesn't go is minus 175. Saint-Denis has a 100% finish rate, right?
Yeah. Actually, if you look at my stats, 88% by sub, 13% by knockout. So he actually has a 101% finish rate, which is even more impressive. But yeah, 7 of 8 wins by submission, 1 by knockout. So he's really doing a great job in terms of getting the fight to the ground, and he knows who he is. Like I said earlier, I mean, he knows he's a grappler. He's not looking to stand up and knock you out with head kicks and stuff like that. But, maybe he could do it. But Stolze will be better on the feet here. But just a couple of quick things. If you watch that Emeev fight with Stolze, Emeev's taken down Stolze in the first round. 10 seconds left in the round. Stolze gets back up, lands 2 big shots and a jump knee. Gets Emeev mounted with 2 seconds left in the round. Dude, if he had another 10 seconds, he might have finished Emeev there at the end of the first round. And he had his moments in that fight against a very good Dagestani wrestler. So, yeah, I think that this fight is going to be closer than what the line is telling us right now. I was really impressed from what I saw from Stolze, and we got to keep in mind that Saint-Denis has not been fighting great competition thus far. And like you said, he does get a little sloppy on the ground. He'll go submission over position and give up position, and that's something you don't want to do at this level a lot. And Stolze can get back up after he gets taken down.
Yeah, for sure. And like that first round, like against like Emeev Stolze, like Emeev clearly won like pretty much the whole entire first round. And like you said, that in that last moment, could have potentially swayed some judges, but it didn't sway the judges in that fight. Looks like it was 2 30-27s and 1 29-28. And then the second round was very close as well. So yeah, that was a lot closer than I think people think, that Emeev fight.
It was a good fight. I was kind of surprised. I was expecting it to be one-way traffic. And if you look at the stats, it kind of looked like it was, but it wasn't. When you have to watch the fight to see that Stolze did have his moments there.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna see where the line goes. I don't know. It's not a fight I'm like running to the window for. Any thoughts on the fight goes or fight doesn't go? Kind of tricky there.
Yeah, I mean we've got good finishers with both of these guys. Let me see what the prop template is saying here. 18 of their 27 combined fights have finished inside the distance. That's 2/3 of the time, 66.7%. And the fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at 63% implied probability. So nothing really sticking out. It looks like it's priced pretty good. It's overpriced by 13% based on the divisional finish rate at 155, but it's priced right on based on 18 of their 27 combined fights finishing inside the distance.
Yeah, and apparently you're not finishing Benoit Saint-Denis. Like you're not, especially if Kisleyev's reffing, and then you're definitely not. So I think if
Yeah.
there is a finish, it's probably Saint-Denis getting it done inside.
Yeah, if you finish Saint Denis, either you probably put him to sleep or the ref pulled you off of him because he demonstrated that he's not going to quit.
Not at all, not at all. But yeah, it should be a fun fight. Can't wait for the return of Benoit Saint Denis, and yeah, hopefully Kisayev is not reffing. That wouldn't be good. But we have a yeah, kind of a late replacement here. We have Daniel. How do you pronounce his last name? Argueta. Argueta.
Argueta. Yeah.
Going against Damon Jackson, the Leech. We have Damon Jackson is 33 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach. Daniel Argueta, he is 28 years old, 5'7", with a 70-inch reach. Argueta 5 years younger, but it's going to be Jackson who is going to be 4 inches taller, 1 inch reach advantage, and it's going to be Daniel Argueta who's actually coming up a weight class here, which is something very important to mention. And then, of course, he is coming in on short notice as well. Damon Jackson is 3-1 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. Had a comeback submission win in his debut against Mirsad Bektic as a very big underdog. Lost in the first round by knockout against Ilia Topuria. Won a exciting decision against Charles Rosa. And then just recently submitted Kamela Kirk his last time out in the second round. As far as Daniel Argueta, this is a guy that did fight on The Ultimate Fighter, and he did lose to Ricky Tercios. But yeah, he's 5-0 in his last 5 fights. He's been putting on a pretty solid run after The Ultimate Fighter as well. So, yeah, I mean, this is a fight where obviously we're going to have Jackson who's a big favorite, and rightfully so. Jackson's been looking, very good. Coming into the UFC, I was not expecting Jackson to have a ton of success. He was one of those guys where, I thought he was going to be, somebody that comes in on like short notice, here and there. But no, he's put together a very solid run in the UFC. 3-1, his one loss against Ilia Topuria, who's phenomenal. Just went out there and submitted Kamela Kirk, who is a black belt in BJJ in his own right. Just put a pace on him, and that's what he does. And I feel like it's what he's going to do here. And just stylistically, it's a very tough matchup for Argueta, who, what does Argueta want to do? He wants to get the fight down to the mat. He's a wrestler, and when you're doing that, you're going to have to, first of all, try to take down a much bigger Damon Jackson. And second of all, Damon Jackson's bread and butter is on the mat, and he's very, very dangerous, and he's going to have the cardio advantage. I think it's a really, really, really tough ask for Argueta to come in here on short notice, like up a weight class, short notice. This is a nightmare matchup. So I get why Damon Jackson's a big favorite. Is Damon Jackson somebody you want to lay minus 400? Not really, but, I feel like this is a very, very winnable fight for him, Weezy.
Yeah, I mean, and big ups to Argueta for taking this fight on 1 week's notice to take a fight against Damon Jackson up a weight class. The streak that this guy Jackson is on right now, he's just really hot. Of course, he lost to Topuria. Topuria is just an absolute monster. But those last 3 wins against Bektic, against Rosa, against Kirk, he looks dominant. And, Argueta has got the kind of he's not afraid of anything. He grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago, Brady. Orland Park, Illinois, stand up. South side's a rough place to grow up, man. And Daniel is not afraid of anything, coming up a weight class to fight this killer and Damon Jackson. So obviously this dude is brave and he's very confident. And we even saw that in the house. The fight against Tercios, man, those first 2 rounds could have went either way. I thought, you could have given 2 rounds to Tercios, 2 rounds to Argueta, or 1 apiece. But then Tercios got a good takedown in the 3rd round and was able to ride out top position late in that fight. And that's one thing that kind of sticks out here is that, Damon Jackson has gotten 11 takedowns in 7 UFC fights, and he's yielded 11 takedowns. But despite the fact that the takedowns are even, he's out controlling his opponents at a 2-to-1 ratio here, 44.46% to 21.22%. The fact that Daniel is smaller and taking the fight on short notice is just an absolute nightmare against a guy like Jackson, because Jackson weaponizes his cardio. And because we know that this guy does not have 1 ounce of quit in him anywhere, that Bektic fight is as good of an example of that as you're ever going to see. And that was a case where we saw Damon use that cardio and that heart and the grappling savvy that he has to get that 3rd round finish against Bektic. It was a classic Damon Jackson performance. So Daniel does have a path here, though, and that's the wrestling and the top control, because Damon Jackson has been taken down 11 times on 17 attempts. That's only 35% takedown defense. He's getting taken down 2.57 times per 15 minutes, and he's being controlled over 20% of the 64 minutes that he's spent in the UFC cage. So if that's Argueta's path. That's really, I mean, I don't think he wins a striking battle with Jackson because of the size disadvantage that he's going to be at here. He's a smaller guy. Jackson's going to be the much longer, taller guy. And we've seen Jackson actually look really good in some striking exchanges too. For a guy who's spending about 65% of his UFC career in control time positions for or against, he does not look like a fish out of water in the striking exchanges at all. So, look, big ups to Daniel Argueta for taking this fight. He's got some big balls on him, taking a Damon Jackson fight up a weight class on a week's notice. But it's just a nightmare. He's going to really need to be perfect in terms of getting takedowns, maintaining control time positions, maintaining top control, and staying out of the very slick submission and sweep game that Jackson brings with him here. I see why Jackson's a big favorite here. It's very easy to be confident on Jackson based on how he's looking, but this kid Argueta is 5 years younger. He's got his whole career ahead of him here, and if he gets a win against Damon Jackson on short notice, it's going to change his career and his life. So, don't look past this kid, but there's a lot. It's a tough road to hoe. It's a big ask to take this fight on 1 week's notice.
Oh yeah, definitely. Jackson opened up -200. He's now -350, and Argueta opened up +170. He's now +285. So this is kind of where I'm interested. Like, the fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at -170. The fight goes to decision, sitting at +140. The over/under at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is +105. Under 2.5 rounds is -135. Damon Jackson, kind of one of those killer be killed fighters. What was the finish rate on Jackson? Does he have like a 90%, right? Almost.
Yeah, 18 of 20 wins inside the distance for Jackson, and all 4 of his losses inside the distance. So Damon Jackson is absolutely the definition of a killer be killed fighter, and he's fighting a guy who's down a weight class and taking the fight on short notice.
Yeah, what are our Argueta's finish stats there?
The finish stats for Argueta are 75% of his 8 wins coming inside the distance. So he's finished 6 of 8, 4 by submission and 2 by knockout. And he's never been finished, but he's never lost.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. So yeah, under 2.5, -135. That doesn't seem terrible. Jackson inside the distance around -110, which I think that's better than that -300 or -350. And then also maybe some like round sprinkles of Jackson, like round 3, +925. But I bet you'll get better on like FanDuel and DraftKings. But I think maybe early on it's competitive, but yeah, just short notice up a weight class. I think Jackson kind of breaks him and finishes him late.
Absolutely. That's the exact read that I have. And it's not just the Jackson conditioning toughness that makes you think that a 3rd round is possible, but he's also fighting a guy that's going to be smaller and taking the fight on short notice. So yeah, Damon Jackson, I like him quite a bit here.
Yep, right there with you. Let us keep moving on to the next fight. We have Zaruk Adashev going against Ode Osborne. We have Osborne, who is 30 years old, 5'7", with a 73-inch reach. Zaruk Adashev, 29 years old, 5'5", with a 65-inch reach. So Osborne 1 year older, but going to have a 2-inch height advantage and a massive 8-inch reach advantage, which is extremely important to mention. Ode Osborne made his debut against Brian Kelleher, lost that fight by submission in the first round. After that, knocked out Jerome Rivera in the first 30 seconds. After that, lost to Manel Kopp in the first round by a flying knee, and then just recently won a decision against CJ Vergara. As far as Zaruk Adeshev made his debut against Tyson Nam, lost that fight by knockout, came back against Sumidarji, lost that fight by decision. Just recently won by decision against Ryan Benoit. So, yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Ode Osborne, you go back and watch a lot of his fights outside the UFC, he's getting a ton of submissions, and even on his Contender Series fight, I believe, got a submission as well. And this guy looks really slick off his back, but he just doesn't wrestle as much as I'd really like to see. But this is a fight where I feel like Ode should absolutely come in here and go for takedowns. Zaruk Adeshev, this guy's a kickboxer. He has been submitted in one of his couple losses there, and I feel like if Ode Osborne does get this fight down to the mat, he's going to have such a massive advantage, and that's kind of what I was hoping Ryan Benoit did in his last fight. Ryan Benoit, I believe he wrestled in high school, college even. He went for only, I think, like one takedown against Zaruk Adeshev. It would be wise for Ode Osborne to go for takedowns in this fight, but even on the feet, like Ode Osborne's going to have such a big reach advantage. He has very fast hands, very powerful as well. I feel like on the feet it is going to be competitive. I actually was really impressed with Zaruk. Even in like the Sumidarji fight, like he put up a lot better account of himself than I really expected. And then the Ryan Benoit fight, his leg kicks looked really good. So I think Zaruk's a very good striker, but Ode with that 8-inch reach advantage, and then Ode with that ground game advantage. I feel like if he comes in here with a good game plan, not like a Corey McKenna game plan, but with like a game plan getting this fight down to the mat, like he can make this look so easy. It's just, will he go out there and go for takedowns? He has went for 8 thus far in 5 fights. He's only gotten 2 of them, but this is seriously a fight where if he comes in here and gets the fight down to the mat, I think he subs Zaruk pretty easily. So, Weezy, should be a fun fight here. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, very fun fight. And I got to echo your sentiments. These last 2 fights from Adeshev, I watched them, and, coming into the UFC, I had no idea why this guy was here. What was he, like 3-1? And then he got a shot in the UFC. It didn't make any sense. Even the wins that he got on the regional scene were, nobody, Tevin Dice, Ron Leon, I don't know who these guys are. So it was weird seeing him get a shot, but he's looked good. He looked good against Sumidarji. And, if he can win minutes on the feet against Sumidarji, and he did have his moments in that fight, he can win minutes on the feet against Ode Osborne, plain and simple, because, I think Sumidarji would probably box up Ode Osborne and beat him pretty badly from the outside. So does Ode have a wrestling game in him? And we see that he's got 2 takedowns in 5 UFC fights on 8 attempts. He's averaging just over 1 takedown per 15 minutes, but look at the control time, 1.93%. So I don't know, man. To me, this looks like it's going to be a striking match. And yeah, Ode Osborne has an 8-inch reach advantage, but these guys are both southpaws. So that creates a situation where the better kickboxer is probably, and the more experienced kickboxer is probably going to be the one that wins the minute, simply because you don't get a lot of southpaw on southpaw opportunities in the gym, plain and simple. What percentage of the population is even lefty? 10%? So the chances that you're a lefty and going to be able to spar with other lefties from wherever you spar at, wherever you do your camps at, is kind of low. So Adeshev being a lefty here, Osborne is also a lefty. It's going to make for an interesting stylistic matchup here on the feet. And when you have a guy like Adeshev who's making up an 8-inch reach disadvantage, it makes the game plan pretty simple. You march forward. You march forward and close distance, and we've seen him be able to do that. All you got to do is go watch the Sumidarji fight. He can close distance. He can formulate a game plan that will help him deal with that reach disadvantage that he's going to be at here. I think that this is going to be a close fight. I really have been very impressed from what I've seen out of Adeshev thus far. And Ode Osborne, with a nice 80% finish rate for, a 75% finish rate against, I think this is going to be a really fun fight, man. And I think it's going to be a lot closer than what people think it is.
Especially if Ode comes in there with a crap game plan. Like if he goes in there and tries to strike with Zaruk for 3 rounds, yeah, it's definitely going to be closer. But what I actually like in this fight is the under. You take a look at Ode prior to his decision against Vergara, first round finish loss, first round finish win, 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 first round finish loss. And the last time he went out of the first round was like 9 or 10 fights ago. And then on top of that, you mentioned he's very dangerous. He has let me see here. He has 10 wins, 3 of them by knockout, 5 of them by submission. And then, like you said, he has been finishing a couple losses as well. And I feel like if he gets the fight down to the mat, I feel like the sub is just so live. Whether he does so, I don't know. But even on the feet, like both guys have a lot of power. Ode has a lot of power. Zaruk has some power in his own right. Those leg kicks as well. I think the under is just pretty solid priced. I got it earlier. I think I got it like last week at plus 120. It hasn't moved as much as I thought it would. It's still plus money, plus 105. The fight goes decision, minus 110. The fight doesn't go decision is minus 120. Ode inside the distance is plus 165. And then Ode by submission, be at plus 500. But yeah, as far as the money line goes, Ode Osborne is a big favorite. Oh my gosh, he opened at minus 280. My goodness. And he's currently minus 173. Zaruk Adashev opened up plus 240. He's currently plus 148. If I'm laying minus 175 on Ode Osborne, I would want to know for a fact that he would go out here and wrestle. Because if he does not wrestle in this fight, I don't think he's going to look minus 175 unless he knocks out Zaruk early, which it could happen. But Zaruk's a pretty good kickboxer.
Very good kickboxer. And, 5 of these guys, 8 combined fights have finished inside the distance at the UFC level. 4 of 5 for Ode Osborne and 1 of 3 for Zaruk Adashev. So that's 62.5%. Only 40% of flyweight fights finish inside the distance. So that's 22.7% better than the divisional finish rate. And the line at fight doesn't go to decision right now at minus 120 is about 55%. We're getting about an 8% edge over the implied probability of that line if we look at the 5 out of 8 fights combined finishing. So yeah, the under, the fight doesn't go, a cheeky look here for this particular matchup. And I think it's going to be a really fun fight. I kind of like the plus money on Zaruk, but I'm definitely not running to the window at this spot. I would have loved to have gotten Zaruk around plus 200. That would have been a lot better. But here at about plus 140 or 150, it's not something I'm running to the window for at all.
Yeah, I can't believe that opener, like plus 240 Zaruk, like that's nuts to me. So yeah, curious to see where the line does go. Looks like, it went down to plus 125. Looks like some more money as of late has been coming in on Ode, so we'll see. But yeah, I do like, I'll say Ode wins. I'll say Ode does implement some wrestling here and gets it down to the mat, but I just don't know if I could trust him to do so. So I'm not laying minus 170 on the guy, but it should be a fun fight. Move on to the next fight. We have Joe Solecki going against Alex De Silva. We have Joe Solecki, who is 28 years old, 5'9", with a 70-inch reach, going against De Silva, who is 26 years old, 5'8", with a 73-inch reach. De Silva, 2 years younger, and it's going to be Solecki, who has a 1-inch height advantage, but De Silva with a 3-inch reach advantage. And we have not seen Alex De Silva in a while. His last time he fought was against Brad Riddell, and that fight was, how long ago that fight was? 2020?
Yeah, I think it was about 18 to 20 months ago, something like that.
So it was 1 year and 8 months ago against Brad Riddell. His last win comes against Rodrigo Vargas 2 years and 9 months ago. So we have not seen De Silva in a long time. I'm not sure why, whether it's injuries or I'm not sure. But yeah, a young guy taking that long off, you should expect some improvements there. So Joe Solecki is 4-1 in his last 5 fights, made his debut against Matt Wyman, won that fight by decision, and then submitted Austin Hubbard, beat Jim Miller by decision, then lost a split decision to Jared Gordon. As far as De Silva, he made his debut against Alexander Yakovlev, lost by submission, won a decision against Vargas, and then lost a decision against Brad Riddell. I thought he put up a really good account for himself in that Riddell fight, looking good very early on, but did slow down as the fight went on. And that's kind of the knock on De Silva, is the cardio. He does seem to slow down as the fight goes on. But yeah, early on, he looked really good against Riddell. The striking looked really good. I believe he's a black belt in BJJ, very solid, well-rounded fighter. I remember he controlled Kazula Vargas for almost 13-14 minutes of a 15-minute fight. So he's good. He's well-rounded. He's young. He's improving. The cardio would be the one thing I don't like out of him, though. So yeah, it should be a good fight here, Weezy. Both guys I'm pretty high on.
Yeah, man. De Silva has 10 more pro fights than Solecki, but about the same amount of cage time, which is pretty crazy. If you look at De Silva's 21 wins, 20 of them inside the distance, and I think 18 of them are in the first round. So, he's definitely a guy that you have to worry about slowing down later on in fights. But Solecki, see, I don't know what to think about this guy. I kind of had a big bet on him against Jared Gordon, and I mean, I that was a dog shit performance. I'm sorry. You know, I mean, he won that first round. He got a takedown in the second round, got swept, spent the rest of the round on his back doing nothing. And then in the third round, comes out and doesn't shoot a takedown and loses a striking battle with Jared Gordon, which is a bad look at the UFC level. If you can't outstrike Jared Gordon, you're not outstriking many people at this level. So, boy, you know, Solecki looked really good with that 4-0 UFC record coming into that Gordon fight, but then we just kind of saw him get exposed by anybody with even a slight level of grappling. He just didn't look good. I mean, he looked good against Matt Wyman, and he looked good against Austin Hubbard, and he lost that first round to Jim Miller. You know, and Jim Miller has one round in him. So I don't know what to think of this Solecki guy right now, because what I do know about Silva is he's got a lot more fights. He's younger. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage, and there's no chance that the striking is even close here. I mean, this guy De Silva has actually knocked people out in his life. Joe Solecki is not knocking out anybody at this level. So we've got a pretty wide line here, and De Silva's more experienced. He's the much better finisher. He's the much better striker. And we've actually seen him have just as much success in the grappling at the UFC level than Solecki has. And the one thing we haven't really seen De Silva do is give up minutes in the grappling, which is something that we have seen Solecki do. Gave up a bunch of minutes to Jim Miller and Jared Gordon. So this is a very interesting fight for me, but we do have to keep in mind that Silva's coming off a 1 and 9 month layoff. He did have a fight scheduled last year that he had to pull out of with an injury. I don't know what the nature of that injury was, but that's why we didn't see him at all in 2021, was because of an injury here. And now we're halfway into 2022 and we haven't seen him. So got to make sure he makes it to the scale, that he looks good on the scale. But I think that, you know, he's the bigger guy. He's the more experienced guy. He's the more powerful guy. He's the better striker. And he's shown just as much proficiency to win minutes in the grappling exchanges at the UFC level as Solecki has. So Solecki's just going to need to win minutes on the ground here. He's going to need to get takedowns, control De Silva. And I think whichever one has more commitment to the wrestling is going to be able to win here. But I'll tell you one thing, man. If I was going to bet Joe Solecki here, I wouldn't be putting any money before this fight started. I would wait until that first round is over. If Solecki, you know, survives the first round with De Silva, I think he can win the second and third round, because of the conditioning is one thing that I could see that Solecki has a lot better than De Silva. But De Silva has shown that he will continue to go to the grappling over and over again when he has that advantage. He doesn't really have a grappling advantage here, so we might see him keep the fight standing, where he's going to be a lot better than Joe.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, there's a lot of things to like about De Silva. There really is. And, you know, what if he took this 1.5 years off and he's made improvements? His cardio looks better. Like, if he had cardio, like, I would have no problem betting him here. And I might even take a shot on him here at like plus 150. This should be a very, very close competitive fight. And like you said, De Silva probably wins that first round as well. So yeah, Solecki opened up as a what's wrong with these openers? Minus 240. Solecki opened up. He's now minus 170. De Silva opened up plus 205. He's now plus 145. So money is coming in on De Silva, and yeah, it makes sense. You know, very impressive. His last two performances, honestly, like against Brad Riddell, nobody was expecting to go out there and, you know, look that good early on against a striker and Brad Riddell, but he did. And then on top of that, just controlling Vargas for the entire fight was really impressive to me as well. So, and then on top of that, he's young. He's 26 years old. He's a younger fighter. He's taken 1.5 years off. I think there's a lot of things to like about De Silva, but at the same time, Joe Solecki, his ground game's no joke.
Yeah.
It's a close fight, but yeah, the line does not indicate that.
Yeah, and what I do like about Solecki is that, you know, other than the third round of the Gordon fight, you know, this guy does try to win with his grappling, and that's where he's at his best. I don't think he has any illusions about the fighter that he is here. So he knows that if he's going to win this fight, he has to outwin the grappling exchanges here with De Silva. But I just don't think that he's going to win the first round here. I just don't. You watch the first minute of the De Silva-Riddell fight, De Silva's winning the striking exchanges.
Yeah.
He's landing the bigger shots. I mean, that is, you would never see Joe Solecki do that against Brad Riddell. And you know, De Silva did that when he was 24 years old against the striking coach, you know, of Alexander Volkanovski. I mean, come on, man. This guy is for real. So, yeah, I like the plus money here on De Silva. And that last performance by Solecki just was not good. He just showed a lot of holes. The striking wasn't there. He got swept. When this guy gets put on his back, he stays there and does nothing. I think he got exposed against Gordon here, and I think this is a good spot for Silva.
Yeah, like what happens if Silva gets on top of Solecki? Like Solecki showed to really have nothing on his back. And yeah, Silva, I believe, is a black belt. Yeah.
Yep, he absolutely is. And 14 minutes of control time against Kazula Vargas out of 15. This guy can win minutes on the ground too. Yeah. So
I like it. I like it. Potential live dog there. All right. I do want to take time and shout out the chat before we continue. If you guys can, please smash the like button. 140 of you hanging out here on a Sunday. Me and Weezy do go live every Sunday, 7:15 p.m. Eastern time. So let's shout out the chat here. Thank you all for hanging out and contributing. Dixon in the chat, Armchair, Paul Pierce, Take No Prisoners, MMA fan, Danny Lopez saying, hit the like. I agree. Dirty Reg. We have it. Dan Goldstein bringing the jokes all night. I love it. Mushroom hanging out. J772012. See if I missed anybody. Chip hanging out as well. Matthew, Chris. Let's see here. Dixon, all you guys. Thank you all for hanging out. Leave a like. It does go a long, long way. Prince of Mischief, I see you as well. All right, guys, let's keep moving on. And I believe, I don't know why, but I believe this is the main card opener as of now. And yeah, I saw this fight on Twitter and like a week or two ago, and I thought it was a joke. Like, I can't believe this is an actual matchup. I really can't believe it. And on top of that, I can't believe it's on the main card. We have two fighters who have looked horrendous. Karolina Kowalkiewicz, she has not won a fight. I think like she's on a 5-fight losing streak. I think the last win was back in 2018. It was against Felice Herrig. But since then, 5 losses in a row. She's looked horrible. She's now 36 and a half years old. On the flip side, we have Felice Herrig, who's coming off of, multiple surgeries, very serious surgery. She's now 37 and a half years old. She has not won in 4 years in 5 months. Like, I cannot believe this is an actual fight, but it is. And we're breaking it down, and actually took the time out of my day to watch tape on this fight. And I just can't believe it. But my goodness, Felice Herrig, she's 37 years old, 5'4", with a 65-inch reach. Karolina, 36 years old, 5'3", with a 64-inch reach. Herrig, like I said, 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Her last win was like 5 years ago against Courtney Casey by a split decision. Prior to that, a decision win against Justine Kish. Loses to Karolina, loses to Michelle Watterson and the handsome Verna Jandaroba. As far as Karolina, 0-5 in her last 5 fights. And, Jessica Andrade knockout, no shame in that. Michelle Watterson decision, no shame in that. Alexa Grasso, no shame in that. Yan Janan, no shame in that. Getting submitted in the first round against Jessica Penny, there is some shame in that. And Weezy, I remember talking to you a while ago at this point, and I was like, Weezy, I'm tempted to bet Karolina Kowalkiewicz. And I think this could have been the fight where it all started with like the orderlies and stuff. This could have been the fight where you brought up the orderlies and you talked me off of it. Thank goodness, because if I pulled the trigger and saw that, I don't know how I could have recovered. I mean, that was terrible. So she kind of, I don't know, she showed bad fight IQ in the Penny fight. We were all questioning like where her mentality's at, and I'm questioning the same thing here. Where is her mentality at almost a year later at 36 years old? Weezy, this fight, I can't believe it. I can't believe this is a fight and we're about to break it down, but let's go ahead.
So Brady, he messaged me earlier today and he's like, yeah, dude, I just started taping Herrig versus Kowalkiewicz. And I messaged him back and I said, I'm going to just let you tape that one. And I will tape some other fights, because I just, we don't make enough money to tape this fight, Brady. We just we could get big raises, and we don't make enough money to tape fights like this. And this is, I mean, it's apps. I was just going to tell you, put up the 1-800 gambler ticker, because this is one of those fights. Look, Felice Herrig is coming off of 2 serious knee surgeries. That's why we haven't seen Felice in so long. It's not like she wanted to retire or anything like that. She just can't fight. You know, I mean, when your knee's torn up, and it's 2 straight surgeries on the same knee, I believe, ACLs, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why we haven't seen Felice. And Karolina has looked god-awful. 5 consecutive losses, getting submitted by Jessica Penne. And then, you got the long way off for Felice as well here. There's just so many things about this fight that are just screaming, just stay away. And, I mean, this is the orderlies are really getting sent to your house. And this is the public service announcement that we always have to give on Stat Diggers, Brady. It's okay, you might think that you're going to make some money on this fight. But what if you don't? What happens if you bet Felice Herrig and Karolina Kowalkiewicz comes out there, lands a right cross, and Felice's leg goes the wrong way, and she has, she hurts her knee, and then you lost a bet, and then you got to look at yourself in the mirror saying that you bet on Felice Herrig or Karolina Kowalkiewicz, because no matter what, if you lose money on this fight, you are going to be despondent. Either that or you're just a psychopath. If you can lose money on a fight like this and get over it quickly, you're a better man than I. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night knowing that I fucked up just by betting this fight. It's not what happens when you win, Brady. It's the Corey McKenna bet where you're like, oh, she's got this completely, obviously Elise Reed is a white belt. Of course, Corey McKenna is going to take her down. Of course, she's going to just wrestle the entire time, and then you just look at yourself in the mirror. It's about midnight. You're 3 beers deep. You got tears rolling down your face. You're down units. And it's because of Karolina Kowalkiewicz, or it's because of Corey McKenna, as you're sitting there, watch one of the greatest wrestlers in the history of the UFC, Danny Castillo, give striking advice. Against Elise Reed, a girl that got drowned by Sam Hughes. Somebody who's new to mixed martial arts and really doesn't have a ground game. But it just goes to show you, when you have a coach like Saif Sayoud who tells you to do the right things and gives you a good game plan, it'll get you wins at this level when you have an opponent that has a huge hole in their game. And the biggest hole that you or I would have in our game, Brady, would be if we were betting on this fight. That's a hole in our game as gamblers, because how is Felice's knee going to look? We don't know. She should be the better fighter here. She should absolutely be able to go in there, take down Karolina Kowalkiewicz, win a ton of minutes on the ground, and get an easy win. But the knee might not hold up. The desire might not even be there at this point. These ladies are coming towards the end of their careers. I'm picking Felice Herrig. She should be able to take down Karolina and win, but I'm not betting this fight. You shouldn't either. And if you do, and you're out there with confident takes on Twitter, don't be surprised if there's a knock on your door in the middle of the night.
Not even from the orderlies, but like the cops. I mean, you should go to jail if you bet this fight, right?
Yeah, because like if you're in one of these states that still hasn't legalized gambling yet, and you're like betting out of state, that's when the legislators and the cops are going to come after you. Not because you're betting on the main event. They're going to be like, look, this degenerate's betting on Kowalkiewicz versus Herrig. Let's get him in jail. These are the kind of people we can't have roaming the streets freely in our municipality, because it makes us all less safe.
I agree. I totally agree. We'll take a look at the line. Felice Herrig opened up plus 100. She's now minus 125. Karolina opened up minus 120, now plus 105. The fight goes to decision. Minus 285. The fight doesn't go to decision. It is plus 225. I would caution anybody. I know people like parlaying like the women's fights to go to decision. Like I'd caution, like we saw in Karolina's last fight, like I really question her mentality and if she wants to be here or not on a 5-fight losing streak at 36 years old. And then I really question Felice Herrig, who's 37 years old. And this is a strawweight fight. Like they're old for strawweight, very old for strawweight. So just pass. Sometimes just pass.
Yeah, and this one just got added too. That was even more bizarre, where it's like you've already got 13 fights, and the UFC's like, wait. check it out. We're going to make this card even better. How about a couple of women's strawweights coming off of injuries and 8 combined losses in a row? We're going to put them at, hey, we're even going to put it on the main card for you guys.
Why not? I mean, maybe towards the end of the night, you need a break. Maybe you need some dinner. Maybe walk the dog. Like, this is one of those fights, right?
It really is, Brady.
I'm not watching this fight. I'm not watching this fight. There's no way.
God, I'll watch it, but come on, man. What's happening here?
I don't know. But let's move on to the next fight, which is actually going to be a very good fight, and I'm looking forward to it. And it's Alonzo Menifield going against Askar. Mozharov, we have Alonzo Menifield, who is 34 years old, 6 foot with a 76-inch reach. Askar, he is 27 years old, 6'3". Menifield, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss to William Knight last time out. Very close fight there. Decision win against Ed Herman. Submission win against Fabio Charant. Knockout loss to Oven St. Preux. And a decision loss to Devin Clark. As far as Askar, he has he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights, making his debut. And this guy Askar is the definition of kill or be killed. And I watched his entire career in like 5 minutes. Like, this guy, a lot of times he's out there knocking out the popcorn man, maybe the peanut guy. And then other times, like when he faces any resistance at all, this guy is looking for the door. Like, it's not too often you're tapping to strikes. And we saw Charlie Ontiveros, I think his name was. The dude was tapping to strikes multiple times. This guy kind of gives me that vibe. When things aren't going his way, he's going to look for the door. Either he's going to knock out Menifield here in 60 seconds, or he's probably going to look for the door. Just a weird matchup. I mean, Askar, he's exciting. He has 29 fights. I think that's insane. He's a ton of finishes. Rarely ever goes to decision. I think the last time he went to decision was like 2014. So I get why they made the matchup. They're looking for some violence. They're looking for an exciting fight. I think this one is going to be a very exciting fight. As far as picking a winner, I mean, Askar is going to have his opportunities early on. He's going to try to knock out Menifield early, and striking offensively actually looks pretty good. It's just I worry about him defensively. What happens when he gets hit? What happens if Menifield takes him down? Like, off his back just seems to have literally nothing. So a fight that probably ends in the first round, honestly. As far as picking a winner, I got to go Menifield because I think the fight does get extended. I favor him heavily. On top of that, he's fought the much better competition. It's not even close. On top of that, I feel like he can go for takedowns. He was able to pick up and slam down Fabio Charant and submit him shortly after. I feel like that's kind of on the table here. But if you like Askar here, I mean, first round knockout is probably the way to go. But yeah, fun fight here, Weezy. Kind of a weird fight, but yeah, should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least, right? I mean, so Menifield, 91% finish rate. Askar Mozharov, 91% finish rate. So they've both got 91% finish rates, and that's in 32 combined wins. So yeah, I think 30 or 29 wins out of 32 are all finishes, and then Mozharov has been finishing all 8 losses. Out there tapping the strikes, out there getting armbarred from guard. And then the wins, like you say, he kicked the shit out of that popcorn guy. The guy still had popcorn on him, That was crazy, I mean, why do they let the popcorn guy fight? But they'll let him fight. And I mean, this guy's got a tattoo on his neck. I mean, who thought that was a good idea to make those fights? He's fought some cans, dude. Let's have some fun, Brady. Let's have some fun and look at the records of the guy that Mozharov has beaten. And we'll look, especially even early in the career, some really good ones. I don't even know who the signature win is for Mozharov. A win over Yevgeny Golub, who's 13-6, is probably the signature win. Fabrice Degond, 5-0. Konstantin Linik, 26-16. And these are the big wins, and they're coming in a promotion called the Professional Pancration Championship. I've never heard of it. Wins against Aljamain Shadmanov, 7-4. Mingyang Zhang, 5-4. Yinchuan Wang, 0-2. Nurjiang, 1-3. Chek Kane, 17-9. Yinchuan Wang again, 0-1. Kui Wang. Pen Yang. This guy's just beating Wangs. That's all he does. He just goes out there. He's like, put somebody named Wang in this cage with me, and I'm going to fucking destroy them. And that's what he does. but there's really no other. There's some weird wins here, like custom rules win by triangle choke, and 1-0, 1-7, 0-0, 0-0, 0-0, 0-0. I mean, like, this guy's not beating anybody, dude. And, he's losing to guys that you really wouldn't expect UFC level competition to lose to. So it's not surprising that we've seen the violence bets get way out of hand with this fight. With the 91% finish rates of both of these guys. Mozharov, kill or be killed. No, there's really no desire to go past the first round. He's got 2 decisional wins, but I think one of those decisions was in a 2-round fight, not even a 3-round fight. So with Mosharov, we got a very exciting fighter who should give us about 2.5 minutes of his best performance. And then if he doesn't get Menifield out of there, he should be out of there late first round, early second round. The under 1.5 is juiced, but it should be with this particular matchup. And yeah, it's hard to see this one going to the scorecards or even really going to the second round.
Yeah, so just some quick numbers here. Askar, 29 fights, which is a ton. And like we said, a lot of them are against the peanut guy and the beer guy. But 29 fights, only 3 have went out of the first round, and only 1 has been to the third round. One of the decisions, like you said, it was a 2-round fight. So he's only been to the third round 1 time in 29 fights. And you take a look at his losses when he's losing, it's in the first round. First round knockout loss. He had a first round knockout loss, first round submission loss, first round doctor stoppage, first round submission loss, first round knockout loss, and then a second round submission loss as well. And then even as an amateur, he has 1 fight, and it was another submission loss in the first round. So yeah, the guy's like the definition of kill or be killed. Weird signing. Should be fun, I guess. But yeah, I think Menifield probably runs through this guy, but I think he'll have opportunities early on. Like Menifield got knocked out by OSP a couple fights ago. So if you like Askar first round, I want to see what that is. They have it out. So Askar in the first round is, oh my gosh, dude. It's only plus 300. That's nuts.
Wow. You would think it would be juiced up a little bit higher than that. I mean, if you can get Jordan Wright first round plus 1,000 a lot of times when it opens on FanDuel, you should be able to do a lot better than that for Mosharov. But
goodness,
I mean, Menifield should destroy this dude. He's a complete can crusher. His best wins have come in a promotion called the Professional Pancration. Dude, this should be Menifield. It should be very violent, and it should be a very fun fight to watch.
Yeah, so I saw the under 1.5 rounds last week prior to getting into the tape, and I saw it at minus 240, and I'm like, okay, this is a huge mistake. Minus 240, under 1.5. I thought they mistaken it for like under 2.5, but I watched tape on. I'm like, oh, okay, that's why. But yeah, I did bet the under 1.5. I don't typically like betting under 1.5 unless there's a really good reason. Last week or 2 weeks ago now, I bet the Parker Porter under 1.5. And this is another time where I'm going to bet the under 1.5 before it starts to get too crazy. I bet it at minus 165 on DraftKings. Caesars has minus 160, and then it looks like it's already getting smashed on BetOnline, minus 190. The fight doesn't go to decision, is still playable on BetOnline at minus 350, but you can't parlay that on BetOnline. That's probably why. But we're already seeing like minus 610 on 5 dimes, minus 714 on Bet365. So I think these violence props are going to keep getting smashed. But yeah, I like Menifield. Do you have any, like, I don't know, do you want to bet Menifield at this price tag, or what are you thinking?
What's the money line on Menifield?
He's minus 150, which,
dude, I think that's a really good bet. I look, just go watch tape on this Mosharov guy. I mean, he's a fun kickboxer to watch, but I mean, these guys that he's beating are nobodies. I mean, this guy Menifield looks like he was carved out of marble. Yeah. And this is going to be the biggest dude, the scariest dude that he's ever faced. I mean, this is not some guy. This is not some guy named Wang. This is a former football player who could bench press a truck.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, this is
I like Menifield here.
No, I do too. This is a big step up in competition for Askar. Big.
Yeah, it is. It's a big step up, and he's pulled out of 3 straight fights too, has Askar. And then you also look, 29 professional fights, average fight time, 2.93 minutes, over a 29 fight sample size. So what happens if he doesn't get Menifield out of there in the first round? I mean, he's going to get destroyed in round 2.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mess around with like the Menifield KO or sub. I think Menifield like inside the distance is like plus money. I think that's interesting. But yeah, I wouldn't mess around with the KO. I could see Menifield knocking him out. I could see Menifield submitting him. This guy Askar looks to have like no ground game, and I could see him tapping to strikes as well. So I don't know. I could see a lot of things happening in this fight, but I do see some violence for sure. But yeah, it should be a very very fun and exciting fight for as long as it lasts.
Yeah, and this is what we were talking about this card. Not great name value, but there's fights like this Menifield Mosvarov fight where it's like, even if you don't have money on it, you're going to be sitting there in front of the TV about to start and with a big smile on your face being like, somebody's going to get served here. This is going to be a fun fight.
Oh, yeah. No, I like it. And I see why they put main card for sure. I do not see why they put the Karolina fight on the main card, but maybe. I don't know. But
I don't know. I'm telling you something, dude. If they leave cold-blooded Blanchfield against Aldrich off the main card and they put Kowalkiewicz Herrig on the main card, I'm going to do something very dramatic. I don't know what yet, but it's going to be dramatic and I'm going to be pissed off and I'm going to do something that really kind of displays how unhappy I am with the UFC making that decision. Because that, my friend, would be bullshit.
No, I think everybody agrees with you. Everybody besides the people that put the card together, they don't agree with you. But everybody else, like I see on Twitter, like they're like, "What is going on? Blanchfield is the first fight for what?" Weird.
That one will be on the main card. It has to be.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if it wasn't. But we'll move on to the next fight. Looks like we have about 4 fights left. If you all can hit the like button, that's much appreciated, guys. We have back-to-back newcomers, and we have, if it will pull up, there it is, Lucas Almeida. We have Trizano, 30 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach, going against Lucas Almeida. He is 31 years old, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach as well. Trizano, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. He had a decision loss his last time out to Akeem Dawadu. Prior to that, won by decision against Ludovic Klein as a pretty big dog there. Lost by submission against Grant Dawson, and then won a split decision win against Luis Pena. As far as Lucas Almeida, he will be making his debut here, and he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. So, yeah, should be a fun one here, Weezy. We have Almeida, who this guy, I believe, has a ton of finishes on his record. This guy's going in there and getting stuff done very early. Trizano, kind of the opposite, more of a decision guy here. I think like a 44% finish rate for Trizano. So, a little bit of a clash of styles in that aspect, but 2 guys that are very solid strikers. Weezy, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, man, 100% finish rate for Almeida. 62% by knockout, 38% by submission. So he's an equal opportunity finisher. And so is Trizano. When he does finish, he's got just as many submission finishes as he does knockout finishes. But Almeida with 3 more fights, but because the average fight time for Trizano is about 10 minutes and it's about 6 minutes for Almeida, it's actually Trizano who has more cage time. He's a little more experienced minutes-wise, and it's Almeida who's a little more experienced time-wise and fights-wise. But obviously, Trizano with 5 UFC-level fights in comparison to only the 1 Contender Series fight for Almeida leads us to believe that it's Trizano who's probably got the experience advantage here. Like you mentioned, Almeida the much better finisher. Trizano's been finished in 1 of his 2 losses. Almeida never been finished. We don't have much in the way of striking stats here or grappling stats for Lucas Almeida. But he did fight Daniel Zellhuber at the UFC level on the Contender Series. And Zellhuber is a good prospect, a really, really big guy for the weight class, who's just, really tough guy to close distance on. And with Trizano, it'll be kind of a similar challenge here for Almeida, but Trizano not as big as Zellhuber. We see that Trizano getting outlanded by about 0.4 significant strikes per minute. He's 53% accurate, showing under 50% striking defense, but he's never been knocked down in 5 fights. And Almeida, in 15 minutes at the UFC level is landing 6.4 and absorbing 7.67 significant strikes per minute. So his opponents are outlanding him and outvoluming him. So yeah, Almeida fighting guys on the regional scene here, and they're not quite the level of competition that Trizano's been fighting. As Trizano's been in there with guys like Giannetti, Luis Pena, Grant Dawson, Ludovic Klein, Hakeem Dawodu, while the names on Almeida's resume, Italo, Trinidad, Daniel Zellhuber, Nico Cucuccio, Bruno Tavares, Adilson Faria. It's just, this is a step up for Lucas here, and he's about the same age that the experience is similar, the size is similar, but I would expect Trizano to try to win minutes in the striking exchanges, which is what he does very well, and I would expect Almeida to be trying to get this fight down to the ground, but he didn't shoot any takedowns against Zellhuber, which was pretty interesting to me because Zellhuber was such a big guy and was winning the minutes on the feet that I was kind of expecting to see that side of Almeida's game, but we did not see it. And that is making me like Trizano a lot more here, because if I think with the UFC debut, the potential for an adrenaline dump here, and a guy like Trizano, who's been able to win minutes on the feet against guys like Dawodu, Klein, Pena, Giannetti, these are good wins. So I think it's going to be a close fight. I need to see more tape on Almeida. I've only watched 2 of his fights thus far, and it's hard to get a real good idea for what this guy's process is when you only watch 2 fights. But Trizano is a guy that we've seen enough of that if the line is close here, it's kind of easy to go with the experience, the higher level of competition, and a guy that we know has been showing 72% takedown defense and has faced a lot of takedown attempts in his 5 UFC fights. Trizano's had 32 takedowns shot against him, while Trizano has only attempted 3. So for every 1 takedown Trizano attempts, his opponents are attempting 11. And despite that fact, his opponents are only out-controlling him about 2-to-1 ratio. So Trizano can get the occasional takedown if he goes for it, but it's not really his game. And he does a pretty good job of getting back up to his feet when he does get taken down and not losing a bunch of minutes there. So I think Trizano by decision is a pretty good look for this fight.
Yeah, if you like Trizano by decision. So Trizano opened up -180. He's now -230. And then Almeida opened up +155. He's now +195. Just curious. The Trizano by decision is currently +110. Yeah, if you like Trizano, I mean, instead of laying -230, +110 by decision would be the way to go.
Yeah, and Almeida in 14 professional fights has never been finished. So, the fact that Trizano has never finished any of his 3 UFC wins, and the fact that Almeida's never been finished, it's a pretty good look for a fight going the full 15. What is the fight goes to decision here?
The fight goes to decision is -170 on 5 dimes.
Don't mind that. That's not. I would expected that to be juiced up more than -200. To be honest with you.
Yeah, especially considering Trizano's like -230, -265 on some books. So, yep, yeah. I like that as well. The scorecards equals no action. I'm curious to see what that is because Almeida has that 100% finish rate and Trizano that 44% finish rate. They have Almeida scorecards equals no action at +130.
That's not a bad look. That's not a bad look at all. And we've seen Trizano finish before. Grant Dawson did submit him. So, there could potentially be the chance there for that. But it's not a fight I'm running to the window to bet either side on. I actually thought Trizano was around -140. I don't know why I thought that. At -230, that's a little wide for a guy who's 2 out of his 3 wins at the UFC level have come by split decision.
Yeah.
To lay that kind of juice on a guy who's in that many close fights, I don't think it's a good decision.
Yeah, and that Ludovic Klein fight, it wasn't a split decision, but it was a very close decision as well.
Yeah, so when you got to be very cognizant of what you're laying money line wise, knowing that Sal D'Amato is probably going to be there. Chris Lee's probably going to be there, and if this fight goes to decision, you're at the mercy of those guys. Trust me, you'd rather be holding that plus money ticket because if it goes tits up, at least you can say, hey, it was a close fight and I had the plus money ticket. You can kind of look yourself in the mirror and say, I was on the right track there. And that one maybe goes my way 3-4 times out of 10. And sometimes that's all you need. So, yeah, this is one that you got to be very careful when you're laying this kind of juice, because you don't lay minus 230 unless you think that this guy's going to look minus 230. And you don't look minus 230 when you come out the other end with a split decision win.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's one of those fights where, yeah, I think Trizano wins, but I'm not laying minus 230 on him, like one of those. But yeah, if anything, like Trizano by decision plus 110, I think that's a much better way to play it. He doesn't really finish anybody.
Yep, and he's never finished anybody at the UFC level.
Yep, I like it. So that's probably how I look at it there. Next we have, it doesn't make sense, Weezy. We have Aaron Blanchfield opening up the card, and we have Poliana Botelho, Karine Silva on the main card, 2 fights away from the main event. My goodness. But I guess I actually am looking forward to this fight, to be honest. Should be a fun one. We have the newcomer in Silva. Looks like it's 3 newcomers in a row on the main card. But yeah, Silva, she's 28 years old, 5'5" with a 67-inch reach. Botelho, she is 33 years old, 5'8" with a 67-inch reach. Silva, 5 years younger. It's going to be Botelho, who is having a 3-inch height advantage. Both have that 67-inch reach. So Karine Silva made she's on the Contender Series in her last fight. Weezy, how do you pronounce that name there? Yan
Kui-hee.
Yan Kui-hee. Yeah. So
yeah.
That was a good fight there. She actually got taken down by Yan Kui-hee in the first round. Did not really have much to offer back, in that fight. But the second round came around and she was able to get a submission win. And you go and watch her fights, and that's literally all she does. It's just a bunch of submission wins, arm bars, all the good stuff. She's very dangerous on the mat. Submitted City Rocha as well 2 fights ago. Very dangerous. And I guess she has a 100% finish rate as well, which you don't see that too often in the division. So I do like what I see from Silva. And it was nice to see her, battle some adversity in her Contender Series fight a little bit. And, she got to the second round. She did look a little bit tired, but, she's able to get that submission there, and that was good. Poliana Botelho, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut, I believe it was against Siri Kondo, and won by knockout there. And then she lost by submission against Cynthia Calvillo, won by decision against Laura Mueller, lost by decision against Jillian Robertson, and then lost by decision against Luana Karolina. So, yeah, this is a very tricky fight for me because, I think Botelho is going to have the clear advantage on the feet. But you go and watch some of these Botelho fights, and the Cynthia Calvillo fight, she gets taken down a couple times. She gets submitted, no hooks in. That was not a great look. In the Jillian Robertson fight, another fight that was not a great look. Jillian Robertson, who does not have the best wrestling, she was able to take down Botelho and get her down, I believe, in every single round. And on top of that, she was able to get into mount multiple times in the fight. She was able to take her back at some point in the fight. Was not able to finish her, but if she had a little bit more time in some of these rounds, she probably would have. And she got into pretty dominant positions against Poliana Botelho. Like if Karine Silva gets into those same dominant positions, like she's going to have some solid ground and pound. She's very, very dangerous. I feel like Silva's very live to win this fight, but I also feel like I just feel like I need to see a little bit more out of Silva. Like I said, it was good to see her go in the second round of her last fight, but you take a look at most of her fights, and a lot of it's just the first round submission. I need to see a little bit more, but I get why. Actually, I don't know who's the favorite in this fight. Looks like it's about to pick him, which makes sense. Botelho, she has fought the better competition. She has been in the UFC, but I feel like stylistically, Silva's going to have some opportunities to get the fight down to the mat. And if she gets it down to the mat, she's very, very dangerous. So kind of it's a tough fight to call here, Weezy. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I like the Silva side actually quite a bit here. So did a good amount of tape study on Karine Silva because I just didn't know anything about her. And she, in her first 5 wins, put each one of her opponents in the hospital. Brady, did you see the City Rocha fight?
Yes. She broke her arm, right?
She broke her arm in half, dude. She broke her forearm in half. And City Rocha didn't even tap. The referee had to stop the fight. Mm-hmm. It was nastier than the Jamal Hill against Paul Craig situation. That was like the exact same thing. And then Karine Silva. Brady, you ever see the movie Bloodsport with Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Maybe. It sounds familiar.
So way back in the day, it's about the Kumite, and the character Jean-Claude Van Damme goes to Japan to fight in the Kumite, and he fights these people from all over the world. Well, the villain in that movie is Chong Li, played by Bolo Young. And dude, this dude that Karine Silva, Yan Kui Hee, the one that she fought there in the Contender Series, is a dead ringer for Bolo Young, Chong Li in Bloodsport. I'm telling you, she's a scary fighter, that Yan Kui Hee. I think we're going to see more out of her because she fights like Jessica Andrade. First of all, she's built like a dude. She looks like a dude. She's got trapezius muscles that are as big as some of the like male bodybuilders that I've seen. And she actually has a bodybuilding background. So Karina got trapped underneath this woman for the first round, and she wasn't able to do anything. But she wound up getting that guillotine submission in the second. She looked like she was getting tired there. But that, dude, that was a very impressive win in my book.
Yeah.
And then the big thing that sticks out for me about Botelho that is a major red flag, Brady, she's the better striker here, right? Mm-hmm. But look at the numbers. Poliana Botelho is controlling her opponents 21% of the time and being controlled 46% of the time. So you don't like seeing strikers that are only striking about 3 out of 9 seconds that they're in the cage, which is exactly what Poliana Botelho is doing here. Karine Silva is snapping off girls' arms. She's choking people out. She's ground and pounding people. She's mean. She's big. She's strong. And I think that this fight is going to spend a lot of times in control time positions, either for or against here. And I do believe that Karine Silva is going to be winning those exchanges. So I kind of like Karine Silva quite a bit here. She's more experienced, which is actually kind of surprising. She's got 6 more fights than Botelho. And she's been doing this 3 months longer at the pro level than Botelho. So it's a very interesting fight, but I think Karine Silva is way, way more dangerous.
Yeah, she's very dangerous. Like, I'm taking a look at her wins here, and she had that second round win against Jan, her last fight out in the Contender Series. But prior to that, first round TKO arm injury, first round submission, heel hook, first round submission, first round knockout, second round submission, second round KO, first round armbar, first round knockout. First round knockout, first round knockout, first round knockout, first round knockout, second round knockout. Like, she's winning the majority of these fights in that first round. And yeah, she's not won a fight that's went to round 3. So she is very dangerous, 100% finish rate. And yeah, if she gets on top of Botelho, like, she's going to have a lot of opportunities to finish her. So yeah, I like Silva as well. But what I like kind of more than that is going to be the fight doesn't go. So looks like it's at plus 130, which is interesting because, Silva has that 100% finish rate. But if she's not able to finish Botelho, as the fight goes on, like, Botelho has a decent finish rate in her own right. I believe it's like 75%. Like, if Silva does not finish Botelho early, if she slows down as the fight goes on, maybe Botelho can get her late. So I'm kind of liking that fight doesn't go at plus money just due to, Silva, being a 100% finisher. And then I'm taking a look at her losses. Submission loss in the first round, decision loss, another submission loss in the first round, and then a third round knockout loss. So Silva, she's been to decision, it looks like, 1 time in her entire career.
Yeah. And Silva's been submitted by Marina Moroz on the regional scene. She got submitted by Marina Maktanina on the regional scene. So, like, these losses that she's taking are to very high-level competition as well. So I just think it's interesting that she's the younger fighter. She's going to be the bigger girl here. I mean, Botelho is listed at 5'8". Karine Silva is listed at 5'5". I promise you, when you see these two ladies next to each other, it's going to be Silva that looks a lot bigger. So I like Karine here. I think that she's mean. I think the fight doesn't go to decision is a super sneaky bet. 17 of Silva's 18 pro fights have finished inside the distance, my man. That's a lot. And Poliana Botelho has finished 6 of her 8 wins inside the distance, and she's even knocked out 1 of her 3 UFC wins. So she can get a finish at this level as well, especially because I'm telling you, man, when Karine Silva submitted that Bolo Young lookalike, she was gassed after. I mean, if she didn't get that guillotine, I think that fight probably would have been finished by either fighter in the next minute and a half because she was done for. Yeah. So, the violence is very sneaky for this one. I'm going to write that one down right now because If I look at the prop template for this particular fight, Brady, we see Botelho Silva, 80% finish rate in these ladies' pro fights. 24 of 30 have finished inside the distance. So that's 80%. And the implied probability of this fight not going to decision on the line at plus 130 is 43.48%. That gives us a 36.5% edge over the books for the line and a 39% edge over the divisional finish rate of 41.1%. So very sneaky violence bet for this fight.
Very sneaky indeed. That one is, definitely jumped out on the page to me. Plus 130 there. Looks like the best price out there is on Bet Online. There you go. I like it.
Nice.
All right. So there we go. Maybe some violence there at plus money. Next fight, we have the co-main event. We have Dan Ige going against Mosvar Evloev. We have Ige, who is 30 years old, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. Mosvar Evloev, 28 years old, 5'7" with a 72-inch reach. So Ige is going to be 2 years older, and then Evloev is going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here. So Ige is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, had that split decision win, very close fight against Edson Barbosa, lost a decision to Calvin Kattar, 5 rounds, knocked out Gavin Tucker, lost a 5-round decision against the Korean Zombie, and then lost a decision against Josh Emmett. And then as far as Mosvar Evloev goes, he won a decision against Sung Woo Choi, won a decision against Enrique Barzola, he won a decision against Mike Grundy, won a decision against Nick Lentz, and then won a decision against Hakeem Dawodu. So yeah, Mosvar Evloev, this guy's undefeated 15-0, and I feel like he continues that here. I feel like he goes to 16-0. We'll talk about the price tag in a little bit, but it looks like Mosvar Evloev is the second biggest favorite on the entire card, just behind Aaron Blanchfield. And you go and watch the Dan Ige fight against the Korean Zombie, and we don't typically see the Korean Zombie go to his wrestling a lot, but he went to his wrestling a lot more than we usually do in that fight. He was able to have success in terms of taking down Ige. Ige on paper has about a 55% takedown defense. Zombie is able to take him down. And I know it's the Korean Zombie, black belt and BJJ, all that good stuff, but we don't typically see Zombie go out there and implement that game plan, but he was able to do so and have a lot of success with it. And I feel like Mosvar Evloev is going to come in here with that same game plan of getting the fight down to the mat like he typically does. And I just don't see Ige doing really much to stop it. So, it's Ige's a beast. I like Ige a lot. He's a really good striker, BJJ black belt, very well-rounded. But I just feel like Evloev is going to take him down and control him like he has been doing his entire career. And I don't think Ige is going to be the one to take his O here, Weezy. So, I like Evloev here. Am I running to the window to lay minus 400 on the guy? No, I'm not. But I do think he gets this done.
Yeah, me too. And, the thing that this is one of the ways that I would look for value on this fight. So, Evloev is minus 400. But in Evloev, you got a guy who's averaging 4 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's out-controlling his opponents 37.5% to 6.6%. So he's winning a ton of minutes on the ground, and he's spending almost half of his cage time at the UFC level on the ground or on the cage. So Evloev, big-time minute winner on the ground. And then we see a guy like Ige here who, even though Ige has 14 takedowns in 12 fights, and he's yielded 12 takedowns in 12 fights, he's getting out-controlled by his opponents. So Ige is the guy who can lose some minutes on the ground, and that's really something you don't ever want to do against Evloev, because if you give him the opportunity to win minutes on the ground against you, that's exactly what he's going to do. But what's Evloev by decision, Brady? Because right now you got Evloev, a guy who's won 5 fights at the UFC level, and none of them are inside the distance. And Dan Ige, you might need like a machine gun to finish Dan Ige, because this guy, he's got that stereotypical Hawaiian toughness. There's no quitting this dude. He's just incredibly tough, and you're not finishing this guy, especially not in 3 rounds. So, Ige has never been finished in his career in 20 fights, and Evloev has never finished anybody at the UFC level. So that would be the way, if I was on the Evloev side, to try to get some value.
Minus 155. Which is better.
I'd probably bet that for 1.55 units. There's nothing wrong with that, because if he does finish Ige, that's a huge feather in his cap. Because you look at these guys that Ige's been fighting: Edson Barbosa, Calvin Kattar, Gavin Tucker, the Korean Zombie, and Josh Emmett. Dude, if those guys aren't finishing you, Mosvar Evloev, if he finishes him, it's going to be a signature win, a spectacular performance, one that could literally, if Evloev goes out there and finishes Ige, he's probably fighting for the title in 2 fights. He's probably got one more fight after the Ige fight. If he wins that one, and this is where I'm saying if he finishes Ige, because it would be that big of a statement that he probably gets one more fight and then gets a title shot, honestly. So I think Evloev by decision minus 155 is a really good way to play this fight, because Evloev is a guy who's a master of winning minutes on the ground. He's getting his takedowns at almost a 48% clip. He's averaging 4 takedowns per 15 minutes and out-controlling his opponents at a 6-to-1 ratio, while Ige is showing a very unfortunate 55% takedown defense, which is a very bad statistic against Mosvar Evloev. He's getting taken down 1.15 times for 15 minutes and getting out-controlled by his opponents 17% to 12.62%, despite the fact he's got 2 more takedowns than his opponents do. So everything sets up here for a Mosvar Evloev win by decision, unless Ige, who's got some serious hands on him, lands a big shot. I think it's either Ige inside the distance, because I just don't see Dan Ige winning minutes against Evloev. So it's either Evloev by decision or Ige inside the distance. What could be a very interesting prop for this fight would be the finish only on the Ige side, because Ige has got a 60% finish rate, and we've seen him. If he touches you in the right spot, you're going down.
Yep. So Ige scorecards equals to action plus 165.
I might be, because I feel like that's a free roll, and I just hope that Ige catches him with a hook on the chin, and that's what I'm looking for there, because Ige's not submitting Mosvar Evloev, and he's not winning enough minutes to win a 15-minute decision against Evloev. He's just not the better wrestler here. He's got a 25% takedown accuracy and has only controlled his opponents 12.62% of the time. So yeah, I think I might take a crack on the Ige finish only prop, and I'll be looking at that Evloev by decision.
Yep, makes sense to me. Gonna see what FanDuel and DraftKings get out the Evloev by decision, and even like the finish only as well. But yeah, I think both of those are great ways to play it. But yeah, Evloev, I feel like he's just gonna do what he does. You take down Ige, control him. Could Ige catch him potentially? It's a fight, but yeah, Evloev by decision seems to be my favorite spot in this fight for sure.
Yeah, that would be the best bet for this fight, in my opinion, as well.
Sounds good to me. All right, let us keep moving on to the main event. Thank you all for hanging out. Mushroom, Karthos, Effie, Any Action Sportscast. We got the GOAT, Tajik Bey, MMA fan, Dan Goldstein. Thank you all for hanging out. We have 161 of you in here hanging out, talking some fights. We're about to talk through the main event. Me and Weezy will be doing a main event deep dive tomorrow on the MMA Engine YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in. We'll go about 30 to 45 minutes going deep into the main event, talking about it from a betting perspective as well. Always fun breaking it down there with Weezy on a Monday. But yeah, main event here, Alexander Volkov going against Jairzinho Rozenstruik. We have Volkov, 33 years old, 6'7" and 80-inch reach. Jairzinho Rozenstruik, 34 years old, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. So Volkov 1 year younger, actually. He's going to be the younger fighter, which is kind of surprising. But yeah, 5 inches of height for Volkov and then 2 inches of reach as well. Volkov, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. And man, Volkov is a guy that, I think he's always been one of the more underrated guys at the heavyweight division. And he just went on this like run. I remember he became like thick Volkov at one point, and like this thick Volkov just looked unstoppable. And I thought, he could really go far in the division. He knocked out Walt Harris, knocked out Overeem, and then, lost a decision to Cyril Gane. And I thought he made, good account for himself in that fight. Went 5 rounds. It was competitive, clearly lost, but competitive. Then he wins a decision against Marcin Tybura. And I'm like, my goodness, like he does not look good in that Tybura fight. He was a big favorite. I had a big bet on Volkov. I expected it to look a lot different than it did. And he was able to do what I wanted, and that was, stuff the takedowns. But on the feet, Tybura was having success, and it was just weird. Like Volkov looked tired in the very first round, which is nuts because Volkov's a guy that can, always go 5 rounds, no problem. But his mouth was open wide in the first round. It was a really weird look. And luckily, for my bet's sake, he was able to come back in the 3rd round and look much better. But just a very weird look. And then against Tom Aspinall, this is a guy in Volkov who, has very good takedown defense, and Aspinall just able to take him down easily, and Aspinall just ran through the guy. So, just have not been, Volkov has not looked great his last 2 fights. Against Gane, he looked okay. He still lost, but his last 2 fights, especially like the Tybura fight, I just don't know what's going on with Volkov here. But yeah, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights, got knocked out by Ngannou, knocked out JDS, lost the decision to Cyril Gane, knocked out Augusto Sakai, and then lost the decision against Curtis Blades when, both these guys when both these guys are losing, they're losing to the best of the best. Volkov's losing to guys like Derek Lewis. He's losing to guys like Cyril Gane. He's losing to Tom Aspinall. Same thing with Rozenstruik. When he's losing to guys like Ngannou, guys like that, Curtis Blades. So 2 very high-level heavyweights here. And, I don't know. This is a fight where, I don't know, I feel like, if this fight was like a couple fights ago, Volkov was, looking good. He's on that run. I feel like I'd be much more confident in Volkov here. But, just hit him in the Tybura fight just was a terrible look for me. Like, what if he shows up and he's tired in that first round again? Because there's a big difference in striking between Tybura and Rozenstruik. If you slow down and get tired against Rozenstruik, he's going to knock you out. So I guess I have a bad read right now on Alexander Volkov. I don't know where his head's at. He's not been looking great. And, Rozenstruik, we know what he's going to do, very low volume, but when he lands and he lands hard, he can absolutely knock you out. So kind of a fight, like, honestly, I'm struggling with this main event. It's a fun fight, but I have no clue who's going to win this one, Weezy. So help me out here. Who you liking for the main event?
Yeah, so, okay, Volkov is going to be like a foot taller than this dude because Jairzinho Rozenstruik is a liar when it comes to his height. He's not 6'2". He's certainly not 6'4". He's like 5'11". And Alexander Volkov actually also is a liar about his height because he says 6'7". Bullshit. This dude's 6'9", maybe 6'10". So we got 2 liars squaring off in the main event here. Yeah. But what doesn't lie, Brady, are the experience stats. 29 more professional fights for Alexander Volkov. 260 more minutes in the pro cage. 3 more years as a pro mixed martial artist. And about 85 more minutes in the UFC cage. And 3 more UFC level fights. So Rozenstruik is a moment winner. He's not a minute winner, not at this level. He's way too low volume to be a minute winner. 71% finish rate for Volkov as a pro, 92% finish rate for Rozenstruik as a pro. So Rozenstruik only has 1 win by decision in his career, while for Volkov, he's got like 10 decision wins. And then Volkov's been finished in 5 of his 10 losses, 3 times by submission, 2 times by knockout. And Rozenstruik has been knocked out in 1 of his 3 losses. I believe it was Ngannou who did that to him. So if we look at the striking numbers here, look at Volkov's metrics, man. They look really nice. These are the metrics of a minute winner. 5.17 significant strikes landed, 3.29 absorbed. Volkov throws 9.14 attempts per minute, while his opponents throw 7.14. So he's outlanding and outvoluming his opponents. He's very accurate at 56.5%. He's landed 3 knockdowns in 12 fights, and he's landing 0.26 knockdowns per 15 minutes. He's been knocked down twice in 12 fights, 0.17 knockdowns allowed per 15 minutes, and 54% striking defense. Certainly not fantastic. Now, Rozenstruik landing 2.8 per minute, absorbing 3.07. So he's just absorbing a little bit more than he lands, which is not a problem for somebody that throws with the power that Rozenstruik does. These guys like Derek Lewis, like Rozenstruik, these guys that have the one-punch knockout power, they don't have to win minutes. When you're landing a knockdown on 2.5% of the significant strikes that you land, if you go a full 3 rounds with somebody, the mathematical possibility that you're going to land a knockdown, therefore win the fight, it's like 50-50. When you get to the point where you're landing a knockdown at 2.5% of the significant strikes that you land, the numbers tell you, Brady, that you need to land about 40 significant strikes on the aggregate before your opponent gets knocked down once. And when Rozenstruik knocks you down, you're not getting back up. He's got that kind of power. So this is going to be the minute winning of Alexander Volkov on the feet up against the moment winning of Rozenstruik on the feet. Now, Rozenstruik's had a big problem here. He's only had a 2-inch reach disadvantage, but like I said, he's going to be about a foot shorter. So it's going to be very evident that this guy is going to need to close distance. The one thing we don't see Jairzinho do is walk forward. That's a big problem for me because he certainly isn't going to grapple. Jairzinho Rozenstruik has attempted 0 takedowns in 9 fights. He's not going to grapple Alexander Volkov. And Volkov has attempted less than 1 takedown per fight. Now, he gets them at a 70% clip, but he's not a guy that's out there winning minutes on the ground either. Now, if he were smart, I think he would be wrestling in this fight. He should at least be mixing it in. He should at least try to get 1 takedown per round, or at least shoot 1 per round. At least get Jairzinho on his heels. Get him thinking about something else besides marching forward and landing a big counter shot. Because if Volkov can display his entire skill set here, he's going to find more ways to win minutes. And I think that's going to be Volkov at his most dangerous, because he could win 24.9 minutes of this fight and lose 1/10 of 1 minute and lose the fight. I mean, we saw Jairzinho do that in the 5th round against Alistair Overeem. He was losing that fight. And Overeem was winning minutes via the grappling in that fight. But, he let Jairzinho land 1 big shot, and that's all it takes. So these heavyweight fights are ones that you have to be very careful. You have to tread lightly. We know that moment winners can lose minutes up until the time that they actually land that 1 big shot, turns the fight on its head, changes the trajectory of everything, and then now you're trashing a ticket that you should have cashed. So, yeah, it's Jairzinho. What's a great bet here? How about Volkov decision only? Because I don't know that I don't think that Jairzinho can win minutes against Alexander Volkov. So I think that's a pretty good look for a bet. Rozenstruik not a minute winner, and then maybe the finish only prop for Rozenstruik would be a good way to look at this one, because that's how he wins. He's won all 6 of his UFC wins are inside the distance by knockout. So he's not winning decisions at this level. It's just not his game.
Yep, for sure. Let's take a look at some of these props. So first of all, the money line, it opened up -160 for Volkov. He's currently -153. And then Rozenstruik opened up +140 and is currently +133. So like I said, this fight was like a couple fights ago. I just have a bad taste in my mouth. These last 3 Volkov performances, not even the Gon fight, but the last 2 really, just have a bad taste in my mouth. But yeah, if this fight was a couple fights ago, I feel like I'd be all over Volkov here. Stylistically, it's a good fight, right? He's going to be the minute winner here. He's going to have no problem outlanding Rozenstruik. He's going to have, on paper, it says a 5-inch height advantage, but we know it's more like a 10-inch height advantage, a reach advantage as well. Typically the cardio is very good for Volkov as well. Outside of the Tybura fight, it didn't look great there, but I'm a big fan of Volkov. I really am, and I feel like it's such a winnable fight. But Rozenstruik does have that X factor, and that is the power, and he's going to have 25 minutes to land a big shot on Volkov here. So I think there's some interesting ways to play it. I don't think I'm going to touch the fight from a money line standpoint, but the fight goes to decision +150. The fight doesn't go -185. But you mentioned the decision only or finish only. I think that's an interesting way to play it. The finish only for Rozenstruik it's -115 a piece. That's on Bet Online, and then I want to say on FanDuel I saw it close to a pick'em as well. And then DraftKings doesn't have lines out yet, but this decision only for Volkov, I'm not sure what that's going to be, but I think the decision only for Volkov especially is going to be a good look, because I'd be shocked if Rozenstruik went out there and out-volumed Volkov for 5 rounds.
Yeah, and even if Rozenstruik even wins 1 round, chances are he's finishing. When he wins that round, he's probably finishing the fight, because that's when Rozenstruik wins a round, he usually ends the fight. Yeah. He's just not somebody that's going to stand, and he's not going to stand at range with a dude that's a foot taller than him and has 29 more professional fights than him and outpoint him from the outside. It's not going to happen. He didn't turn into Israel Adesanya overnight. It's not how he's going to win this fight. So, but you know what? Let me just bring something to your attention here, Brady. Volkov hasn't looked great lately, but let's remember, unanimous decision loss to Cyril Gane. It's hard to take much from that. Gane's a master at what he does. Then the decision win over Tybura, but guess what, Brady? That fight was on Fight Island.
That was.
And sometimes we see people just not look like themselves at Fight Island, and they put a bad performance on there, and sometimes those are bad performances that we can forgive. And then the Aspinall fight. I mean, if Aspinall took down Rozenstruik, he would have submitted him just as fast, you know? I mean, this guy Aspinall is really something else. I mean, he's just starting to show the ground game now, and that's scary because he submitted Arlovsky like that. He submitted Volkov with a straight armbar. You don't see white belts getting submitted with straight arm bars that often, man. So that was a wild one. But, you know, Rozenstruik hasn't looked that great either. He caught Sakai with 2 seconds left in that round. And if he hadn't landed that shot, I think Sakai wins the first round of that fight. And then who knows what happens going forward. So, you know, I think that Volkov and Rozenstruik have both lost 2 out of their last 3 fights. And they're losing to, here's the 3 guys that they've lost to in their last 4 losses. They've both lost to Cyril Gane. Rozenstruik lost to Blades, and Volkov lost to Aspinall. You know, you can't really take much from that just because they're absolutely the top of the division right now. And I think that this is going to be Alexander Volkov by decision. Look, you and I, Brady, we were both on Volkov against Gane. We were wrong there. We were both on Volkov against Tabura. We were right, but just barely.
Yeah.
And then we were both on Volkov against Aspinall, if I remember. I know I was on Volkov.
I think so, yeah.
So, you know, I think that there's a reason why we like Volkov. And now that he's getting like a little bit of a step down here, somebody on his own level and somebody that he could potentially win a kickboxing match against, maybe we see the return of the thick Volkov that got to the Cyril Gane fight and then just didn't have enough. So we'll see what happens here. But I am leaning Volkov in this one.
Yeah, I think you got to. I mean, outside of like it's a heavyweight fight, but outside like a knockout, like Volkov's going to be the clear minute winner here, and I want to see like what Volkov's weighed in the last 2 fights because let's see. So against Aspinall, he weighed in at 253. Against Tybur, he weighed in at 263. Against Gane, he weighed in at 265. So it looks like the Aspinall fight was the least amount he's weighed in a while because he weighed in 265 limit against Walt Harris. He weighed in 265 limit against Overeem, 265 against Gane, 263 against Tybur, and then it was Aspinall where he came in and weighed like 253, which is interesting. But yeah, hoping for the return of thick Volkov would be nice. And yeah, by the way, you talked about the Fight Island for Tybur. I think he had like a kid too, right? Around that time, like he had a kid.
I think he did.
Yeah.
I think he did. Yeah. I mean, that's just a nightmare. I remember when Spivak had a kid with his wife, and he told like after he won a fight, he's like, I haven't slept in like 2 weeks. You know, it could be really, it could really throw you off your game. And somebody was just saying like, I don't buy the Fight Island narrative because it's not a long flight from Russia to Abu Dhabi. But the problem is those fights are taking place in the middle of the night in Abu Dhabi. It's not like it's daytime there. So these guys from Russia, from Europe, are flying to Abu Dhabi, and then they're fighting at a time that would be completely opposite of when they would be fighting normally. They're fighting at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning Abu Dhabi time. So it does affect people. It affects the Americans because they don't see the daylight when they fly over there because they're only up at night. And it affects the Europeans because they're fighting at a very strange time. I'm telling you guys, those Abu Dhabi fights are not good indicators of future performance. I can promise you that.
Yeah, and just to show that, Weezy, I think we should rebook Khalil Roundtree versus Marcin Prachnio just to prove that it's something to mention.
Yeah. I mean, that was wild, dude. I mean, Roundtree should have punted that dude's head into the upper deck. It should have punted it into the Black Sea, you know, and it didn't happen. And then we've seen Khalil look like a killer again after coming back from Fight Island. He broke Bukauskas' leg in half in the next fight. So, yeah, man, it's an interesting narrative. It's just one of those things that I've noticed over the last couple of months that some of these guys that look terrible on Fight Island look great in their next fight.
Yeah, for sure. So, Tajik saying the 3-4-5, like the 3-4-5 decision for Volkov could be interesting. I think DraftKings has the 5 decision, but FanDuel has the 4-5 decision. That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple different ways to play it, but yeah, like you said, the Volkov decision only. I'm hoping they messed up that line because it should be very wide if they're on top of it.
Agreed, because Rozenstruik's a finisher and Volkov's a minute winner. So if they don't get that right, that'd be a great way to play this fight and potentially free roll, with your bet and just say, if the fighter that I bet on wins by their best win condition, I'm going to profit. And if not, I probably don't have to even lose the bet. I'll probably just push. So it's a great way to look at it.
For sure. So yeah, we did it, Weezy. We broke down 14 fights. Yeah, a lot of spots kind of sticking out after talking over it. Yeah, should be a fun week. 14 fights, and then next week we have UFC 275, Glover Teixeira, Jerry Prokoshka, Talas Santos, Valentina Shevchenko. They're bringing in Santos to get slaughtered by Shevchenko. That should be fun.
Yeah.
So lots of MMA. Like we said, 12 fight cards in a row. Our next break is August 28th. So buckle in, get ready, and let's
just in time to draft our fantasy football teams.
I don't know if I can do fantasy football anymore, man. This is
dude. After 12 straight weeks of UFC, I might retire from fantasy football permanently.
Oh yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot, but yeah, we did it, Weezy. Let the people know where they can find you, and then what you have going on throughout the week.
Yeah, you can find me right here on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday for Stat Diggers, every Wednesday for the DFS show, every Saturday for the Watch Along. You can find me on the MMA Engine YouTube channel tomorrow. Prior to the Die Hard MMA podcast with Clint, we're going to be going 1 hour before Clint goes live to give you a full breakdown on the Volkov-Rozenstruik fight. And then every Thursday, 7:15 Central Time for Propability, we give you a data-driven look into all the time props, all 14 fights on the UFC Vegas 56 card. Make sure you check that out. And then, as always, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Uncle Weezy, doing Just the Tip every Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time. We give you stats and tape study-based look on all 14 fights, finish with a greasy four-leg parlay and Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. God bless each and every one of you guys for spending your Sunday night with us here on Pub Sports Radio. And let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 56. Let's go.
Let us do it. Do want to shout out our guy, Lou Sasshole, saying, appreciate you, boys. We appreciate you, Lou Sasshole. I see you on Twitter a lot, and yeah, I do appreciate that a lot. The name gets me every time. The name gets me every time, but yeah, I do appreciate it. You are in here every week, and that doesn't mean a lot there. But yeah, guys, you can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers, DFS by the numbers on YouTube, live streams throughout the week. Also on the MMA Engine, all the good stuff. Me and Weezy will be on there tomorrow, and then my live stream on Friday as well. So yeah, lots going on. Lots of MMA coming our way. Looking forward to it, and looking forward to making some money on this card. Looking forward to some violence. Best of luck, everybody, and we'll talk to you all very, very